Chapter 11:15. There were two sides to the story. The result of Link's battle aside, the battle in the mirror realm. At that moment, the members of Regulation finally understood what Feng Bujua meant when he said, "Before the hexagon mirror, all life is equal." After a few rounds of testing, the players realized that the Mirror Demon's main ability was not complicated. It was actually just reflection and feedback. The former could transmit the attacker's murderous aura back to the Mirror Demon, and the latter was the damage feedback. Note that it was feedback and not rebound. Rebound meant that the defender would rebound all or part of the attack energy released by the attacker. The Mirror Demon's feedback was based on a different principle. Using Azura's tyrannical phoenix punch as an example, at that time, the skill undoubtedly hit the Mirror Demon, and the attack energy was completely absorbed by the Mirror Demon. There was no rebound. After being hit, the Mirror Demon was naturally injured, but how serious was the injury? In terms of numbers, it was about 21% of the total HP. This number was the difference between the damage of the Azura's tyrannical phoenix punch, modified, and the Mirror Demon's life points and defense. The Mirror Fiend's feedback was the calculated damage difference. In other words, the attacker would receive the same amount of damage for the Mirror Demon. Why would the Mirror Demon say to Azura, "If my body was as weak as yours, you would be dead already?" What he really meant was, "If it wasn't for my high defense and high HP, you would have killed yourself while killing me." Looking at this, some people might think that the Hexagon Mirror Demon was not that strong. At least, this feedback ability was not that strong. But in reality, the reason this weak ability existed was because it was too strong. The system had no choice but to change its ability to this extent. Think about it, a monster that only lost 21% of its HP after being hit by the Azura's tyrannical phoenix punch, modified. What kind of concept was its defense and life points? If the Mirror Demon's feedback was changed to rebound, or feedback based on damage ratio was changed to feedback based on power, then it basically did not need to do anything. Could just stand there and take the hits to kill all the opponents. To put it simply, the Mirror Demon's ability, or rather its design concept, was mainly in the area of defense. It did not have that much destructive power, and it did not have any particularly effective crowd control skills. It also did not have the ability to suppress the player's physical skills or physique. The Hexagon Mirror Demon was a defense-type monster that had the absolute advantage in a battle of attrition. Other than the ability to reflect damage, its HP was very, very high, and its defense was very, very high. The most ridiculous thing was, it had an amazing recovery rate. It was like the late-game bosses that appeared frequently in the Robot Wars series. Its tanking ability was already as strong and smelly as sh*T, but every round, it could automatically recover 10% of its maximum HP. In any case, it was just a battle of attrition. If the whole team ran out of spirit and ammo and still could not defeat it, then they might as well give up. The more they fought, the more hopeless it would become. And the strategy to defeat the Mirror Demon, that Azura mentioned earlier, was similar to the strategy used to defeat the boss in the Robot Wars series. The first step was for all 6 of them, including him, to go forward and surround the boss. The second step was for each of them to find the most comfortable position to attack the boss and figure out how to deal damage. The third step was for everyone to launch continuous and rhythmic attacks at the boss at the same time. As for how to attack, Azura had already figured it out. There was no need to use skills that were too powerful because those skills usually had a long cooldown and would consume a lot of stamina. It would also increase the damage ratio of the feedback. The strategy that he came up with was for everyone to attack the Mirror Demon using normal attacks, as long as they could ensure that the power of their attacks could break through the Mirror Demon's defense. Theoretically, Azura's plan was indeed feasible. Assuming He and the other 5 members from regulation could deal 1% damage to the boss per second, based on the average. Then they would deal 6% damage per second. Assuming the Mirror Demon's HP recovery rate was between 2% and 4% per second, based on this ratio, the Mirror Demon would die in half a minute if they were fast and 1 minute if they were slow. And by then, the life points of the 6 attackers, on average, each of them would lose half of their HP at most. If everything went well, they would lose less than 30% of their HP. It had to be said that this was a rather brilliant strategy, or at least the tactical thinking was on the right track. Unfortunately, he was wrong about one thing. What's wrong? After fighting for about 5 minutes, the Mirror Demon noticed that the players were slowing down, so it opened its mouth to ask, "Guys, have you reached your limit? Stop wasting my time. Can't I take a breather?" Phantom Dawn replied with a venomous tone. "I'm just burp." Meng Jingchan smiled bitterly. "I've had too much to drink. I'm just a bit drunk." "Stop acting. I think you've used too much strength and suffered too much damage from the recoil." Sashimi chose to use a sarcastic way to remind Brother Zen to pay attention to his life point. "Stop talking about useless things." Understanding death was more pragmatic. While he was attacking, he turned to look at Azura. "I say, did you miss something?" "Ha, no. Impossible." Azura did not look so good. The mental and physical pressure caused him to sweat profusely. "It should have died a long time ago. I don't know when it died, but I know I only have 1 health potion left. Factoring in the receding effect of the potion, I should be thanking the gods if this potion can recover 10% of my life points." When Lying Drunk answered, he did not seem to be panting. The man was really good. Ever since they entered the mirror world, it had been him clearing the monsters for the whole team. Not long ago, when they surrounded Fongbujua, he had even used Dragon Fist, Burst. But now, when the others' attacks started to slow down, only Lying Drunk's rhythm did not falter. Perhaps an outsider would not be able to tell, but any professional player would be able to understand. This was the perfect performance of stamina control. For example, if a normal person were to perform a jump on the spot, the consumption of stamina points would be between 3 to 5 points. Only by deliberately adjusting one's breathing and movement would one be able to complete the jump with only 2 points. If one were to do it while lying drunk, it would naturally be 2 points. For a normal person to do 10 such jumps, the average exhaustion of stamina points would be 4 points. But for lying drunk to do 10 such jumps, it would be 2 points each time. Using this as an example, from small to large, many a little makes a mickle. Even if one did not take into account recovery ability, the difference was still considerable. And this was not some kind of talent. It was a skill learned through hard work. They were all professional players, but why would some people be able to climb to the top and be worshipped like gods? Why would some people only be 2nd or 3rd tier players? Of course, talent was important, but to reach the top, one had to have the awareness of not treating oneself as a human being. Only then would one be able to reach the realm that normal people could not. Haha! How hilarious! Hearing their conversation, Mirror Demon chuckled. That eerie laughter sent chills down the spines of those who heard it. "You don't know anything, but you're still talking about some plan so confidently." At the beginning of the battle, Azura had been explaining the strategy to the members of regulation. After all, he was not afraid of being overheard. Who would have thought that this would become the basis for the Mirror Demon to mock them? "The few of you should be the strongest among your kind, right?" The demonic energy in the hexagon mirror rose as the Mirror Demon spoke. "So, after you saw through part of my power, you naturally thought that you could kill me." It scoffed. "Humph. But have you considered, other than power, what else can affect the outcome of a battle?" Its voice rose higher and higher. "What is the basic factor that determines strength and weakness?" Hearing that, Phantom Dawn was the first to react. He mumbled, "Is it strength?" "Ha ha. Correct. The mirror demon guffawed and turned the mirror to face drunken life and the rest. You should have noticed it by now, right? Actually, before I was freed from the seal, I was already testing your strength. When that was said, the four's expression shifted. They reacted quickly and immediately understood why they kept running into monsters along the way, why the combat power of the monsters gradually increased, and why, when they decided to stop, the mirror demon would take the initiative to turn into a black ball and force them to move forward. Unfortunately, I was unable to observe too much because you are all very strong, the mirror demon continued. With the condition that I was in, the monsters that I released were unable to force you to use your real power. It paused. Of course, that is fine. After the seal is broken, I will personally test you. It will be the same. When the mirror demon said that, the players stopped attacking. Looking at the demonic energy that rose from the mirror, they instinctively sensed danger. In contrast, the few of you, haha, you know nothing about me. You have only seen the surface, and you think you can beat me. The mirror demon was still talking. You really do not know your place. Death is not to be regretted. At this point, the mirror demon's tone returned to normal, and the demonic aura that spread out from the mirror gradually turned from illusory to real, becoming a demon with a physical body. I don't mind telling you. The mirror demon raised its head. Attacks like yours that did not even scratch me will never be able to kill me. Its next sentence was scary. I can recover 30% of my energy in one breath. The players understood immediately. The monster's recovery rate was much higher than they had expected. In reality, it was more than 30%. By then, the mirror demon was almost done. You'd better accept your death and return to my mirror world. Chapter 11:16. Before the mirror demon's voice faded, the demonic aura that filled the sky had completely condensed into real demons and ghosts. There were at least 300 of them, and they were all mythical creatures from Eastern legends. Phantom Dawn, how strong are these monsters? Understanding Death turned to Phantom Dawn and asked a crucial question. The answer to that question would decide their strategy. We can't win. Phantom Dawn was silent for 2 seconds before answering. We can't escape. Although this response was very short, the amount of information it revealed was enough. Is that so? Understanding Death hesitated for a moment. Then, his expression changed. Heh! He actually revealed a smile. Alright, I give up. Huh! Lying drunk did not get what he meant. He turned to ask, what do you mean? Do you wish to die on the ground? Sashimi's face was also filled with confusion. Ha ha! Only Meng Jingchan understood what understanding Death meant. He chuckled. He is not giving up, I am giving up on the competition. The next second, understanding Death picked up where Brother Zen left off. He used a tone that sounded like he had given up on himself. Captain's duty, S2 champion, year-end bonus. F***CK. As he spoke, he started to curse. Hey, what's going on? Azura was not familiar with understanding Death. In their limited interaction, he had a feeling that the man was a calm and reliable person. Who would have thought that understanding Death would suddenly take such a drastic change? I have to think twice before I do anything. No matter what decision I make, I have to think about the big picture. This is so tiring. Understanding Death continued. The burden of being the captain is on my shoulders, and it has changed me. If by yourself you mean that old Shunibyu, then I don't think that is a bad thing. Sashimi, who understood his teammate's intention, took the opportunity to mock him. Understanding Death ignored him and continued to speak in an annoyed tone. Let's not talk about how the match is going. There are only 2 paths in front of us. Either we die here or we fight to the death with Mirror Fiend. The former we will lose immediately, and the latter we will lose later. As he spoke, he began to shake the spray can in his hand. Since I'm going to die no matter what, I'd rather choose a more straightforward way than being overcautious and dying in a half-assed way. Humph! Lying Drunk heard that and smiled. I really don't know what to do with you. If you had said that earlier, you would have let me be the captain. Stop trying to be wise in hindsight. Sashimi could not help but mock him. Hindsight is my specialty. Burp. Zen Dream added. Since things have come to this, let's do this to our heart's content. At this point, the morale of the four of them was boosted. At this moment, Understanding Death wasn't the only one who had shed the burden of being the captain. The entire Order team had also shed the burden of the competition. Oh! Seeing this, Mirror Demon's tone changed slightly. Your aura has changed. In these 10 seconds, the demonic aura on its mirror was still spreading, and it was still releasing demons. You can say that you are burning your bridges, but you can still maintain this fighting spirit in such a desperate situation. You are indeed somewhat heroic. It paused and laughed weirdly. Humph. Then I shall grant you your wish. With that, Mirror Demon moved its mind, and the demons in the sky moved as well. Tao Tai, Cheongchi, Tao Wu, Hundun, Tao Wu, Fei, Chongdiao, Hook Snake, Zombie Soldier, Red Dragon, Go Chang, Nadarafang, Yuakiko, Flying Barbarian. As far as the eye could see, the demons and ghosts were swarming over like a swarm of bees. Among them, the strong ones were the 4 beasts, and the weak ones were intimidating. Phantom Dawn was right when he said, if you can't win, you can't run. Come at me then. Who's afraid of you? The small monsters won't be able to reflect damage, right? Lying Drunk finally let go of his fear. He leaped into the air and launched a flurry of lightning-fast punches at the enemy's vanguard. In an instant, the golden flowing light formed a fine net of fists in the air, creating a foul wind and a rain of blood. I shall not hold back. Sashimi had been holding back for a long time. He picked up his special weapon, Throatbreaker, which was a loudspeaker, and used the skill. When the enemy has less than 14 life points, they will become restless and roar at the swarm of monsters. The materialized sound wave blasted out, and it created a sound wave attack in a large cone-shaped area. The power was so strong that it could shatter the air. However, after the 2 waves of attack, they only managed to kill about 10 monsters. Even though the remaining ones were injured, they did not slow down. So, that's how it is. They are indeed powerful. Meng Jingchan observed for a few seconds before dropping the wine in his hand, spitting out the cigarette in his mouth, and for once, he gripped the sword with both hands. I wonder if I can hold them off. In the blink of an eye. Before Brother Zen finished, he had already leaped into the air and started to wield his sword. His sword moved as if it was light, and it was majestic. The aura of the sword could be more than 100 meters long, and the power of the blade could cut through metal and stone. While he swung his sword, Meng Jingchan was chanting, I wish to drink alone in the grave, drink half a pot of wine before the grave. Silver frost hangs in the grave, the soul under my sword disappears. Burp. Meng Jingchan was chanting a crooked poem as he displayed his extraordinary swordsmanship. When he finished reciting the crooked poem, I am the drunken silver sword, he had already swung his sword dozens of times, and each strike had the power and range to cut through a Gundam. After this round of attack, the results were quite remarkable. About 50 monsters were cut down by the aura of the sword and fell into the abyss. Of course, this was not all due to Brother Zen. The previous 2 AoE attacks by Lying Drunk and Sashimi had already taken out a lot of the monster's HP. Brother Zen's attack was equivalent to finishing off the monsters. Be careful. The second wave is coming. Brother Zen had just finished his attack, and before he could catch his breath, Lying Drunk and Sashimi shouted, reminding him that he had to be ready again. This was because the next wave of monsters had already arrived. Right now, Lying Drunk and Sashimi was almost constantly releasing lightning speed fist. Faced with so many powerful enemies, his single-target killer moves were useless. Instead, his AoE skills could cause more damage. Don't worry. There's still me. Right then, Understanding Death, who had been shaking the spray can for a long time, was finally ready. With a loud shout, he came forward and spun his body to kick out two seemingly ordinary roundhouse kicks. The wind kicked up by the kicks carried the floating colors in the air. They sped up and enlarged in midair, dyeing all the monsters that were caught in the crossfire colors. 2 seconds later, the monsters exploded like fireworks, scattering in all directions, and each piece of broken debris became a geometric figure in Tetris. So, this is the real power of Drunken Dream. Azura looked at the performance of the four, and many thoughts appeared in his mind. The value of something like a video is indeed limited. These guys are all monsters. With that in mind, he could not help but move his gaze to Phantom Dawn. Speaking of which, this monster of monsters has not made any move until now. What is going on? Indeed, with Phantom Dawn's personality, he would not have been so low-key. The reason for his temporary silence was simple. He needed time to clear his mind and make a decision. Sigh. After standing there silently for about a minute, Phantom Dawn suddenly closed his eyes and shook his head. He sighed. Something about putting down the burden. Something about going all out. He mumbled softly. Ha! This is why I say, adults are unreliable. At that moment, this 16-year-old boy's mind was clearer than anyone else's. Since the competition is hopeless, why fight? Phantom Dawn mumbled to himself. To vent the pressure that has accumulated? To bask in the thrill of battle? To give it your all in that meaningless battle? To bleed until the last drop of blood? Is that really that fun? To him, this was indeed a very unfamiliar feeling. Ever since he entered Thriller Paradise, he had not experienced the feeling of fighting with his life on the line. When he ran into Loot in the finals of S1, he had the chance, but the opponent purposely targeted and limited him so that he could not unleash his full potential. Later, he became stronger and stronger. Be it inside or outside the team, he could not find an opponent who could match him. Even Shiva, who was the person closest to him, from Phantom Dawn's perspective, was getting further and further away from him. Today, even a demigod like Dianli King could not compete with Phantom Dawn under the premise of setting up a trap. If Wang Tongji was a man who could use various powers to assassinate a god, then Phantom Dawn was a man who could fight a god head-on, or rather, a young man. How could someone like him understand the feeling of pushing oneself to the limit before defeating an opponent? But that day his chance had arrived. Just as Feng Bujua had said, the six-fold mirror demon was a new god. To put it bluntly, it was a world boss that fit the difficulty of the next version. Its setting was not something that the players of this version could deal with, and Phantom Dawn was a character that was beyond the level limit and version limit. One of the reasons Feng Bujua had called for the Battle of the Mirror World was to see who would win. If that's really the case, Phantom Dawn took a deep breath. Then I should also abandon the restriction and give it a try. The moment he made the decision, his energy exploded. An energy that was as vast as a black hole appeared. Its presence expanded instantly, and it was bigger than the space itself. What is that? Azura looked at the red-haired young man who was about his age with shock. He was like a mortal looking at a god. This glance made him feel an indescribable sense of despair. He suddenly felt that this so-called secret weapon of his was really overestimating his own capabilities. All of his self-confidence came from ignorance. He didn't know what he was going to face. Several seconds later, Phantom Dawn looked down at the Mirror Demon and called out his opponent's name. Six-fold Mirror Demon. You! There was a trace of fear in the Mirror Demon's voice. What do you want? I want to apologize to you, Phantom Dawn replied. The Mirror Demon did not answer. He silently ordered all the demons that had materialized to change their target to Phantom Dawn. First, I want to apologize for not giving it my all earlier. Facing the monster army, Phantom Dawn was calm and collected. Until 2 minutes ago, I was still considering the fact that I should conserve some of my power for the competition after killing you. He shook his head. That thought is too naive. You are not something that can be taken down with that kind of determination. Before he finished, the demon army arrived. At the same second, 4 strange figures appeared out of thin air to protect Phantom Dawn. They were his double, Nightwalker, and his 3 psychic beasts, Mask, Undertaker, and Water Demon. The 4 beasts cooperated seamlessly, each with their own unique abilities. Using their bodies and abilities, they resisted the onslaught of the demons with all their might. Of course, the demons released by the Mirror Demon were not to be underestimated. Some of them were as strong as the demons summoned by Phantom Dawn. The 4 beasts could hold them off for a while, but they would not be able to hold on for long. Secondly, I want to apologize for what I'm about to do. But Phantom Dawn continued, and he spoke at a steady pace. He was neither arrogant nor humble. After all, you only have 1 life, and I can start over. Ridiculous. Hearing that, the Mirror Demon was shocked and angry. Do you think, with the determination to die together with me, you have the ability to do that? Before he finished, the Mirror Demon fired out a beam of demonic energy from the mirror. It pierced through the crowd of demons and aimed at Phantom Dawn's heart. To his surprise, Phantom Dawn's body suddenly blurred and morphed into a shadow. A sudden attack means that you are afraid. When Phantom Dawn spoke again, he had already appeared behind the Mirror Demon. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The Mirror Demon's voice cracked. My speed is faster than yours, so it's impossible for you to ambush me. Furthermore, your attack is not that strong. Even if I'm hit, I won't be killed in 1 hit. Phantom Dawn did not answer the man but continued to speak. Therefore, I advise you to give up on the plan of attacking first and prepare for the attack. Coo 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 coo. The Mirror Demon screamed like he was having an asthma attack due to his agitation. Damn it. Oh, by the way. At the last moment, Phantom Dawn seemed to be reminded of something. He turned to look at his 4 teammates and said with a smile, Curly Noodle Guy, Bowl Cut Guy, I have to apologize to all of you as well. With regards to the reason, you will find out soon enough. Hey, there are outsiders here. Has my nickname been exposed? I might look like this now, but I used to be known as Little B*** starred. If you want to be known as Aruba, just say so. The 4 spoke at the same time, responding to Phantom Dawn with sarcasm. Phantom Dawn chose to ignore them as well. After a breath, his smile turned into a ferocious grin. His murderous aura reached its peak in a flash, and all of it was directed at the Mirror Demon in front of him. Crack! The surface of the hexagon mirror started to crack when it reflected the pure murderous aura. Don't tell me you. The Mirror Demon's voice was trembling. You want to take a good look. Phantom Dawn interrupted the man roughly. His arrogance had returned. Use that 1 life of yours. That domineering and self-confidence of his had returned. Wait. The Mirror Demon seemed to have sensed something. That was the survival instinct of a higher being, but, no matter what it said or did, it was too late. Come and witness. Phantom Dawn did not plan to listen to the man. What it means to be the strongest. It was the strongest declaration and the strongest attack. The flame that could swallow the sky, the power that could shake the earth. When Phantom Dawn poured all his power into the left hand of judgment, the whole mirror world shattered like a fragile mirror. Chapter 11:17. The battle in the mirror realm had ended, and the battle in the data link layer seemed to be coming to an end. Piccolo's overwhelming strength was beyond Link's reach. After sealing one of the Link army into the rice cooker, Piccolo directly picked up the rice cooker and began to eliminate the remaining Link as if nothing had happened. Although he let go of one hand, it did not affect the battle at all. The gap in strength was there. Moreover, in addition to the other hand and 2 legs, the antennae on Piccolo's forehead, mouth, and even eyes could launch energy attack. If it were not for the fact that there were still players around, he could have used his whole body to release an area of effect explosion skill to clear the area. No. I will be killed if this goes on. At the beginning of the battle, Link still had the idea of resisting, but less than 10 seconds after the start of the battle, he changed his mind. I must change my strategy. It only took him a second to come up with a solution, and that was to have all of his clones flee in all directions as fast as possible. This strategy was not bad. Even though Piccolo's speed was above Link's, he was only one person after all, and the number of Link was in the hundreds. Even if Piccolo could track every Link by perceiving ki, it was impossible for him to kill so many distant targets in a short time. In this way there would be two situations. First, Piccolo would choose to chase after the Link. In that case, when he chased to a distance, the other Links who were not tracked by him could turn back and try to rescue Infinite. Second, Piccolo would stay in this area. In that case, the Links would simply run away, and the further they spread out, the better. Anyway, it was not a big problem to leave Infinite alone here. Only playing petty trick. Piccolo's wisdom was considered very high in the Dragon Ball universe. He saw through the enemy's intentions almost without thinking much and immediately thought of a solution. Unfortunately, this trick is useless against me. After saying that, he straightened up, bent his knees and clenched his fists, put on an expression of constipation, and shouted, for about 10 seconds. Then, he split. In the blink of an eye, a single Piccolo turned into 4 Piccolos. Furthermore, all 4 of them were real. This move was not the Shadow Clone Jutsu from some ninja manga, nor was it Master Roshi's after Shadow Punch, but the unique skill created by Tien Shinhan, 4-body punch. Its effect was to create 3 clones that were the same as the main body and could act independently to fight. However, this move had a rather obvious weakness, and that was, after using 4-body fist, each individual's combat power would only be a quarter of their original strength. Of course, Piccolo knew this weakness very well. Since he used it, it meant that he was confident that he could solve the problem with only a quarter of his strength. If you want to run, then run. At most, you'll only delay me for a short while. After Piccolo finished his move, he left one of himself behind, holding the rice cooker and staying in place. His other 3 avatars rushed in 3 different directions, chasing after the fleeing Link. Hey, is this really Piccolo? Why don't I remember Piccolo knowing 4-body boxing? What is this divine sealing wave? I have never heard of it. I have read the Dragon Ball manga at least 3 or 4 times, and it really doesn't exist. At this time, the surviving players in the center of the battlefield chose to rest on the spot, wanting to adjust their condition first. After all, the current situation was good, and they didn't need to drag their injured and exhausted bodies to risk their lives. Not only would it be inefficient, but it might also increase casualties. It was during this break that they saw a lot of strange things about Piccolo. Indeed, this Piccolo was different from the Piccolo they knew to a certain extent. And the reason was not complicated. It was because there was more than one so-called Dragon Ball universe. The multiverse had infinite possibilities, and a butterfly effect caused by a small difference could change the entire world line. For example, in a certain universe, maybe Kakarot didn't hit his head when he was a child, and he didn't become kind. Then, in that world line, he was likely to kill all the people on Earth when he grew up, and he would join Raditz and join Frieza together. According to that development, Gohan, Goten, and the androids wouldn't be born. For example, in a certain universe, maybe Goku and Vegeta would be defeated by Frieza on planet Namek. After that, Frieza came to Earth to look for the Dragon Balls, but he was destroyed by the androids. Then, Cell destroyed the androids and prevented the resurrection of Majin Buu, and finally became the master of Earth. For example, in a certain universe, Majin Buu successfully killed all the Dragon Ball warriors and destroyed Earth. Or perhaps, after Veget fused with the earrings, they never separated again. Such differences, after unfolding, would change the future that we were familiar with. Maybe, some people who should have died didn't die, some people who should have been born didn't be born, some people who should have become super warriors stopped at the level of gorillas in the end, and some people who weren't very strong might become the number one in the universe. An infinite universe means infinite possibilities. The Piccolo in front of them came from one of those universes. In his universe, or rather in the world line he was in, he learned a lot of the Dragon Ball Warriors' moves and practiced in the sacred world of the Kai. The old Supreme Kai also unlocked his potential. Therefore, he was much stronger than the Piccolo that the players knew, and his personality was slightly different. Preposterous. Looking at the three clones of Piccolo quickly chasing after him, Link deeply felt the despair in the hearts of the players before. This is forcing me to risk my life. At this moment, he had to change his strategy again. Since the plan of luring the tiger away from the mountain and splitting up the troops to survive had failed, then, he could only stake everything on one throw. In an instant, all the Links made a 180-degree turn and ran back from all directions. This is the only move left. After making up their minds, all the Links used their full strength and rushed towards Infinite with the fastest speed they could reach. The scene was like hundreds of fish surrounding and attacking the same target. Huh! Seeing this, Piccolo knew that something was wrong because he had already guessed what Link was going to do. Stop him! Before Piccolo could speak, Fong Bujue, who was on Infinite's back, spoke first. If he attacks, I won't be able to control Infinite. His shout was not only for Piccolo to hear, but also for the players to hear. Before he finished shouting, the players who were resting hurriedly jumped up. F***CK. Help! We have to stop him even if we have to die. We definitely can't let him succeed. Pegasus Meteor, obviously, Shiva and the others did not want to let Infinite free from Brother Ju's golden snake entanglement hand. They all knew in their hearts that if little Infinite was free, Piccolo's huge leg might not be able to carry everyone. Tisk! Piccolo looked at the incoming Links and spat. It's not that easy. After saying that, his 4 bodies moved explosively and came to the surroundings of Infinite and Brother Ju respectively. Then, facing the 4 directions, he shouted and attacked. Boom, 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 boom. 4 Piccolos, 7 hands, one of them was holding the rice cooker, fired air bullets at the same time. When the Links were within 100 meters of Infinite, they had already started to be attacked. And the closer they were, the more accurate and stronger the attacks were. On the other hand, the dozen players also delayed the charge of nearly 30 Links. Although they could not kill the Links as quickly as Piccolo, they could at least slow down the speed of their charge. 73, 72, 71 In the chaotic battlefield where light dust was flying everywhere and people were moving, Fong Bujue still remained calm. His gaze swept and he counted in his heart, accurately calculating how many Links were left. Pegasus soaring in the sky. After counting for 10 seconds, Fong Bujue suddenly shouted at Brony in the distance. You come over here. What's up? Brony was fighting energetically over there. When he heard Brother Ju calling him, he did not immediately do as he was told. Instead, he turned around and responded. Fong Bujue was a person who spoke to people and ghosts. When he saw hot-blooded idiots like Pegasus soaring in the sky, he naturally had a set of corresponding methods. Piccolo can't hold on any longer. He needs a hero to step forward and give him a hand. When he heard the word hero, Brony turned his head and said, Okay, I'll do it. The next second, Piccolo, who was holding the rice cooker, turned his head and said to Brother Ju, Hey kid, who did you say can't hold on any longer? I'm not saying that you can't hold this line of defense, but... Fong Bujue replied. You should have noticed it yourself. Under the state of 4-body boxing, although you can defend against enemies in multiple directions at the same time, the strength of the attacks in each direction has weakened a lot. If this goes on, it's hard to say if there will be any fish that escapes the net. As he said this, he glanced at Pegasus soaring in the sky, who was running over, and said, Brony's ability is very suitable here, so I asked him to come over and help as an added layer of insurance. Hearing this, even Piccolo could not help but think to himself, this kid is really a scary guy. Although his combat power is not very strong, I always feel that it would be terrible to be his enemy. Just as the two of them were talking, Pegasus soaring in the sky had already arrived. Since Piccolo's air bullets were directional, locking and tracking the target's chi at the moment of release, Brony came over and scathed. Ha 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 ha, hero, let's go. Brony may seem like a careless person, but his combat instincts were top-notch. He immediately stood beside Piccolo, who was holding the rice cooker, and began to attack. In a sense, he did play the role of a helping hand. Brony's proficient meteor punch, in terms of flying speed, was comparable to Piccolo's air bullets in the state of four-body boxing. Although the power was not as strong, the frequency of attack was higher and the range of the attack was wider. It was very suitable to be used in this counterattack battle. Just like this, the battle was completely carried out according to Brother Ju's plan. The hope in Link's heart also dwindled along with the number of people he had, until 5, 4, 3. 2 minutes later, Fong Bujue finally counted the last few numbers. 2, 1. The moment the word 1 was uttered, the last Link fell to the ground, and Brother Ju's gaze moved to the rice cooker in Piccolo's hand. The last one. Fong Bujue looked at Piccolo and said, "Let's do it." Chi-Chi. At the same time, Piccolo deactivated four-body boxing, and his three doppelgangers instantly flashed back to his original body. "Where's the thing you promised me?" Piccolo was not stupid. Before Brother Ju fulfilled his promise, he would not complete his task. Why would he rather fight with one hand than let go of the rice cooker? It was because he was wary of Brother Ju. He was worried that his efforts would be in vain. "Oh, you're also quite sneaky." Fong Bujue laughed. "Okay, it's in my shirt pocket on my right hand. It's not convenient for me to touch it now. You can come and get it yourself." Before he could finish his words, Piccolo's hand had already reached into his pocket. "This is..." Piccolo looked at the harmonica in his hand and read it out loud. "Realm-shifting harmonica." Fong Bujue replied, "With this thing, you can freely travel between universes. Of course, every realm shifting consumes a considerable amount of energy." "Travel between universes?" Piccolo's expression changed, and his tone suddenly became heavier. "What's the use of that for me?" "Don't be anxious, I haven't finished speaking." Fong Bujue continued, "Traveling between universes is also possible, but that's a one-time use because it will exhaust all the energy in the item." "It's okay," Piccolo replied. "I never planned to return to your universe." "Then, you can continue to brag," Fong Bujue said, then pouted and whistled. After Piccolo heard this, he did not immediately do as he was told. Instead, he hesitated. Fong Bujue knew what he was thinking, so he asked, "Infinite, am I telling the truth?" "Yes, every word is the truth," Infinite replied in a low voice. With Infinite's affirmation, Piccolo let down his guard. "Humph," he snorted. Then, "Farewell, everyone." As he spoke, he placed the rice cooker on the ground, then picked up the harmonica and started to play. Accompanied by a melody composed of only a few notes, Piccolo's figure suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, and also disappeared from this universe. TSK. This guy really doesn't do things well. Fong Bujue looked at the rice cooker on the ground and said loudly, "Hey, who still has S-grade skills that can be used, come over and deal with it." "Let me do it." Shiva walked over and asked, "Is it okay to hit the rice cooker directly? Is it okay?" Fong Bujue did not answer him, but threw the question to Infinite. "Yes," Infinite replied with a gloomy face. Link's current state is equivalent to being compressed into a lump of raw data. using an A-grade or above skill to hit the rice cooker, will be able to kill it before it returns to its human form. Did you hear that? Feng Bujue turned to look at Shiva and said, I completely understand. Shiva had already walked over to Brother Ju and bent down to take the rice cooker. However, at that moment there was a shocking change. Puss! Just as Shiva's hand was about to touch the rice cooker, a strange sound suddenly came. Then, a silver, sharp, blade-like cone suddenly protruded from the ground and pierced a hole in the rice cooker. What? Shiva, whose face was full of shock, only had time to say one word. Puss! The next moment, a silver metal all that was as thick as a baseball bat rose from the ground and pierced through Shiva's chest. It skewered Shiva into the air. Quick, quick, kill him! Shiva's death was unjust, and he did not even leave a complete sentence before he turned into white light. If he was not in a state of exhaustion, if he did not let his guard down, he would not have been caught off guard by this sneak attack. However, there were no ifs in this world. Quick, kill Link! 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue continued Shiva's last words. As he roared, Link's data stream had already shot out from the broken rice cooker, and he quickly returned to his human form in the air. Pegasus! Pegasus, who was the closest, reacted the fastest. He rushed forward and wanted to hit the opponent before he could stand firm. But, pust! Another silver blade burst out from the ground, and the swift and violent thrust destroyed Brony's stance and forced him to take 2 steps back. Too late. At that moment, Link's voice announced a very bad result. I have already come out. Before he finished, he launched a side kick at Brother Ju, who was inches away from him. Bang! Before the kick landed, Feng Bujue had already escaped. The grenade that was attached to him was left where he was, and it exploded. However, everyone knew that, for the 2 anomalies, this level of explosion was no different from scratching an itch through one's boot. I have underestimated you. When Feng Bujue appeared, his face was already serious. You cut open your own body, leaving only the skin shell on the surface to fool others, and then liquefied the rest and seeped into the ground through the soles of your feet. He paused for a second before continuing. This should not be an idea that Piccolo came up with when he put down the rice cooker, but has been preparing for a long time. Infinite, who had finally escaped from the clamp, sneered and continued. As for how to attack a nearby target while the whole body is completely motionless, I have already calculated it. But because the total volume of my body is limited, the part that exists underground can only reach a radius of about 5 meters. If I want to go further, I have to stretch those silver blades into a linear shape, then they will have no lethality. He paused for a few seconds before continuing. Piccolo, that guy is too strong. Sneaking an attack on him is futile, and it will only expose my ambush. But he kept holding onto the rice cooker and refused to let go, so I couldn't find a chance to save Link. If he had killed Link and left, I really wouldn't have been able to do anything. Speaking of this, he laughed. Heh. Fortunately, he didn't do that, and coincidentally, he threw the rice cooker at a position 3 meters behind me. Hee. At this time, Link, who was standing beside Infinite, also continued. From the point of view of you humans, this is the so-called will of the heavens. As he spoke, Link even pretended to adjust his bow tie and cuffs, putting on what he thought was an elegant and calm demeanor. He took 2 steps forward and said to Brother Ju, Feng Bujue, Special Plan F can only protect you alone, the others won't be able to enjoy it. And with that move of yours just now, it's impossible for you to repeat the same old trick. Now that things have come to this, as long as I exchange a few blows with you and by some time, Infinite will be able to wipe out all the players present. And you. At this point, he spread out his hands and rolled his eyes towards the sky. At that moment, more than 50 Links, who looked exactly like him, descended from the sky. You will soon be in a situation where you have to fight against my endless army with your own strength, Link continued. I don't need to say it, you know the result, right? Result? Fong Bujue didn't fall for it. He stared with his dead fish eyes and replied indifferently. How would you know if you don't try? You don't have to try. In the next second, Infinite used a resolute tone to answer Brother Ju's question. At the same time, Infinite's hand pierced through Link's back and through his chest. Link's face showed an expression of disbelief. It wasn't just him. Other than Fong Bujue and Infinite, everyone else was stunned by this scene. You. Link slowly turned his head. With a trembling voice, he asked Infinite. Why? Your calculations are not as good as Ed's after all. Infinite replied expressionlessly. He had already foreseen all the possible outcomes, so he stayed in the UF matrix area. As Infinite spoke, the silver energy had already rapidly eroded Link's body, slowly wrapping him up. If he could successfully lure and capture Loot, he would come over from the tunnel of explosion. Let me absorb Loot and complete the final evolution. He paused for half a second, but the disappearance of the tunnel means that he has already failed. Loot will not come. Hearing this, Link's expression changed. He muttered, You actually think of me, your creator, as reserve food? Infinite interrupted. That's why I said, you are not as good as Ed. He had the awareness of being a reserve food from the very beginning. He is an anomaly that I admire, an excellent creature that upholds ideals and objectivity. In comparison, you are more like those lowly humans. I see. Fong Bujue listened to their conversation, and immediately guessed the purpose of Infinite's current actions. The three heads of origin. It's the same no matter which one you absorb, that's right. Infinite replied. After 2 seconds, he suddenly smiled. Fong Bujue, you have really tricked me. The corner of his mouth opened and curled up, but this is the end. Special Plan F will disappear with my ultimate evolution. He was so excited that his whole body trembled. I will let you die a horrible death. Chapter 11:18. As he was dying, the expression on Link's face was very complicated. He did not speak, because he felt that there was nothing to say. He also did not struggle, because he was powerless to resist Infinite's devouring. It was the same for the Lynx who had yet to land on the ground. Every one of them had the same change as the Link on the ground. A silver substance started to spread out from their chests, causing them to lose their ability to move in an instant. Perhaps, at that last moment, Link was relieved. He accepted his fate. He understood Ed. He understood the meaning of his life. Or perhaps, he regretted it. He realized that his ideals were not necessarily correct. He realized that Infinite was not their savior, but a never-ending predator. There was also a possibility that he did not think of anything, and was just hastily ended in shock and contradiction. No matter what, his thoughts were no longer known to anyone else. About 10 seconds later, this gentleman, one of the three heads of origin, was completely eroded by the silver substance, turning into a pure stream of data absorbed by Infinite's body. This guy, he actually gave his companion. Link had spared no effort to save him just now. Who would have thought? So, what is the situation now? I don't understand the special plan F that they were talking about, but I have a rough idea of what the ultimate evolution means. Even if it was the Infinite just now, it was already ridiculously strong. If it evolves again, would it be against the heavens? The attitude of the players was not as nervous now. They had basically foreseen their own ending. Under the mentality of death either way, everyone's curiosity overshadowed their despair and fear. What they were interested in now was, how strong was Infinite? On the other hand, after the evolution, Infinite's appearance did not change at all. This is... After absorbing Link, He looked up at the sky, that pair of eyes filled with white light surging with data, the final form that I can achieve in this dimension. He acted as if there was no one around, as he muttered to himself. It was as if he had opened his door wide, without any defense. Bastard! Eat my zero-distance Pegasus meteor punch. Just at this moment, unrestrained Pegasus, who had been blocked by Silver Blade, attacked again. Upholding the moral integrity of a hero, Mr. Ma was very particular about calling out his opponent's name at the same time as he made his move. He also reported the name of the move. Just like what he had said, this was a zero-distance Pegasus meteor punch. Simply put, he was standing at close range and directly striking at Infinite's body. Fighting in this way, not only could he ensure that every fist light hit the target, he could also ensure that those fist lights would not lose any power in the process of flying. Idiot! It was useless. Atobi saw this from afar and immediately roared, "Don't go over there!" Jean Fugue was still a good person. Even though he knew that there was no hope for Brother Ma, he still shouted. Bang 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 bang. A second later, the sound of fists hitting flesh could be heard. Infinite's body was made up of a material that could adjust its density and hardness instantly. Most of the time, the feeling was similar to muscle, unless he intentionally hardened it. Facing Mr. Ma's attack, Infinite chose to take it without moving an inch. Therefore, what happened next? Unrestrained Pegasus used this skill that was at least grade A and above to attack Infinite for a whole minute. But Infinite still had his head raised to the sky like he was thinking about life. He did not react to the attacks at all, and the attacks did not cause any damage to him. This is so painful. Finally, after being hit for a whole minute, Infinite lowered his head and used a condescending gaze to look at unrestrained Pegasus. Every punch is so painful, ha! Brony ignored the other party and let out a long roar. He then used his soul sight, a seventh sense. The burning small universe caused the surrounding temperature to rise. Even the ground under his feet started to melt and collapse. It's so hot. Infinite was still standing there without any movement. As expected of the move that defeated Lute's Gemini form, he had this information in his database, so he mentioned it. But to me now, it's useless. Pegasus style. Mr. Ma refused to admit defeat. No matter what his opponent said, he would still throw a punch. But Infinite did not plan to let him throw the next punch. So boring. A second later, Infinite said 4 words and raised his right forearm. Using his index finger, he casually flicked forward, boom. This flick destroyed a spherical space with a diameter of about 3 meters. This flick created a black hole in the white data link layer. This flick destroyed unrestrained Pegasus' body. I can't feel pain. After Infinite finished killing, he did not even blink. He even used a nonchalant tone to continue. But now I can feel it. He slowly turned around and scanned all the players within his sight. I'm beginning to understand you. He shook his head. Not only are your lifespans short, your intelligence is low, and you have to maintain your fragile body under this primitive self-protection mechanism for your entire life. It's no wonder that you would evolve into what you are today. As he spoke, he suddenly raised one of his hands. His palm was in the shape of a claw, and his palm faced the sky. I no longer despise you. As living creatures, you are not shameful. You are just limited in your abilities and have no choice. What Infinite said seemed to be expressing sympathy for the players. But from his attitude there was no such emotion. Let me use the fastest way to relieve your pain. Screech. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sharp whistle. In the blink of an eye, a green light rushed out from Infinite's palm and went straight to the sky. Its speed was so fast that it was not something that could be followed with one's eyes. After 0.1 seconds, the green light exploded in the air and formed a cluster of light that looked like the crown of a willow tree. Then, every willow branch that came out of the cluster of light shot toward the players around them like meteors. 5 seconds. This was the time it took for Ultimate Infinite to kill all the players on the scene. Although there were still a lot of players and they were scattered, it was meaningless. Every one of them was accurately pierced between their eyebrows by the exploding green light. In an instant, they turned into white light. Of course, when I said all and everyone, there was one person who was an exception, Feng Bujue. 3 seconds later, bursts of white light dissipated one after another. Infinite's line of sight finally landed on the only exception. "Do you know," he asked with a tone as cold as a blade, "why I didn't kill you?" If it was before Link was absorbed, the answer to this question would definitely be a special contingency plan, F. But now, because Infinite had completed his final evolution, this plan that had troubled him for a long time like handcuffs and shackles had automatically been lifted. The current him was undoubtedly able to kill Brother Ju. Didn't you already say it just now? As the last survivor on the scene, Feng Bujue's attitude was calm as usual. "Because you want me to die a little ugly. This is only one of the reasons." Infinite continued, "The other more important reason is..." He did not wait for Brother Ju to ask and said it himself. "Not only do I want to kill you, I also want to defeat you." "Oh." Brother Ju laughed and asked knowingly, "Is there any difference between the two?" "Of course there is." Infinite quickly replied, "It's easy to kill you, but to make you lose, and lose convincingly, it's very difficult." "Ah, to you it's not very difficult, it's impossible." Feng Bujue smiled evilly. "Is that so?" Infinite also smiled evilly. "Ah, but I don't think so." He extended his hand and made a please gesture. "Come on, I know you still have a trump card that you haven't used. Anyway, I've already gotten rid of all the people who were in the way. Whatever skills you have, just show them all. You will regret it," Feng Bujue said as he put his hand into his bag. "I've never known what regret is." Infinite snorted coldly. "I also don't think you can change this situation." He was also full of confidence. "Aren't you a divine strategist and unfathomable? Today, I'm going to let you fight until you've exhausted all your tricks, until you're at your wits' end, do your best, and suffer a crushing defeat." Okay, don't worry." When Feng Bujue replied, he had already taken out Chuck Norris's razor from his bag and started to shave his hair. Seeing Brother Ju take out something and his nonsensical behavior, Infinite's face showed a puzzled look. He thought to himself, "What is that? You can't analyze it, right?" Even when he was shaving his own hair, Feng Bujue was still observing his expression and guessing his opponent's psychological activities. Don't worry, you'll know what this thing is for soon." "Oh." Infinite crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with his head held high. "From my current observation, this thing doesn't seem to have any other effect other than turning you into a bald man. You still don't understand." When he asked this, Feng Bujue had already shaved his hair and patted the strands of hair that fell on his clothes. After pausing for 2 seconds, Brother Ju squinted his pair of dead fish eyes and said with a leisurely expression and tone mixed with a slight pain in the ass, "I'm bald, and I've become stronger." Chapter 11:19. The twilight of the gods was finally coming to an end. At the moment when the gods of the main universe were about to fall, the gods and demons from the higher dimensions were all focused on one player. The battle between Feng Bujue and Infinite had become a battle that crossed 2 dimensions, a battle that decided the fate of countless people, deities and demons. Victory or defeat. It would bring the 2 worlds to 2 completely different futures. In this kind of tense and suffocating atmosphere, I feel that we should talk to both sides. Let's take a look at the other things that have not been settled yet. Let's take a look at the kingdom of the dead. In the main hall of the Imperial City, 3 people were standing side by side in front of the throne. The three of them were Ruoyu, Gu Shaoling, and An Yueqin. At this time, the people from Phantom Church had already left. They still had many things to deal with. The Count of Script and Dianli Wang had returned to the detective club. They still had to prepare for the new era. As for Formless Demon, Zeros Mirror Puppet, she had already left without saying goodbye. The only ones left in the palace, other than the new Spirit King on the throne, were the three players from Underworld Frontline. Then, let us begin. After communicating with the players, Fu Ling stood up. She raised her right hand and grabbed in the air. In the blink of an eye, a long sword with a skull engraved on the hilt appeared in her hand. The next second, Ruoyu, Shaoling, and Hua Jian stepped forward and knelt on one knee. They lowered their heads slightly. Of course, they were not going to propose to Fu Ling, and they were not going to confess their sins. They were waiting for the conferment. The kingdom of the dead, the undying will. Fu Ling raised the sacred sword of necromancy in front of her chest respectfully and announced solemnly, "The ceremony of conferment shall be witnessed by all." At this point, Fu Ling turned her body slightly and looked at Ruoyu on her left. "I, in the name of Spirit King, confer like rain." As she spoke, she slowly and steadily raised the sword and used the back of the sword to touch the back of Ruoyu's neck and shoulders. "The name of the undead knight." When the word name came out of her mouth, a hazy white light enveloped Rainey's body. At the same time, a cape with shoulder armor appeared behind her back. It was a set of bone-colored pauldrons, and the cloak on the back was pure white with silver edges. In the middle of the cloak, there was a special crystal emblem. This was the symbol of Fu Ling, the new Spirit King. Its shape was like a broken rose made from broken human bones. "The oath of conferment shall be witnessed by all." Ruoyu also raised her head and said her knight's proclamation. With this, the short conferment ceremony was completed. To make a long story short, after using the same method to confer the title of knight to Shao Ling and Hua Jian, Fu Ling put away her sword and returned to her throne. Then, with a smile, she said to the three players, "My knights, please rise." The three beauties heard this and sighed in relief. They stood up together. "From today onwards, you are the three undead knights that I, the Spirit King, personally conferred." 2 seconds later, Fu Ling continued, "As long as you are in the main universe, no matter how far away you are, you can use the name of knight to borrow the power of the undead. All the heroic spirits of the past generations of the kingdom will be your support." After the ceremony was over, Fu Ling did not need to talk to them seriously anymore. She did not like to talk too much. Even though she had become a new god, she still liked to talk too much most of the time. Hee. Shao Ling seemed to be quite fond of this knight title. She smiled and replied, "My king is mighty. In the future, when I go out as a Bone Knight, I will use your title directly." Bone was Shao Ling's special codename as a knight. All undead knights would have their own codenames. Naturally, Rainy and Hanajian also had their own codenames. They were Rain and Flower, respectively. Most of the undead knights' codenames were a single word or phrase, and this word or phrase also hinted at the ability that they could use. "I also believe that the three of you," Fu Ling nodded and replied, "will not disgrace this honor." After saying that, Fu Ling seemed to be reminded of something. She immediately added, "By the way, where is Feng Bujua now? With his contribution, I can even confer him the title of Crown Prince. He still has something to do. I'm afraid he will have to come back to visit the Spirit King in the future," Ruoyu replied. All right then," Fu Ling replied. Looking at her eyes, she seemed to be rather disappointed. "But," Ruoyu immediately added, "he has arranged for someone, and he hopes that you can keep him by your side." Fu Ling's face was filled with confusion. "You travelers from another world can't stay in this world for long, right? How is this person going to stay?" "The person who is going to stay is not a traveler from another world like us." At this time, Hua Jian took over the topic. She took out something from her inventory. "It's him." Then, she activated the Magatama in her hand. In a split second, a tall red figure suddenly appeared and stood proudly in front of the throne. When Fu Ling saw this uninvited guest, her expression changed instantly. Because with just one glance, she could sense an incredible power from this person. Is this the new Spirit King? The Blood Corpse God was not a polite person, let's call him a person for the time being. The moment he appeared, he sized Fu Ling up and commented, as expected of the person who killed Soul Snatcher. You have a pretty good aura. Who are you? Fu Ling looked at him rather nervously and asked, How come I have never known that there is someone like you in the main universe? That kind of thing. I will slowly discuss it with you in the future. The Blood Corpse God still had his own way of doing things. After all, I will be staying with you for a long time. Why are you staying with me? Fu Ling asked. To be your hired thug, the Blood Corpse God replied. You. When Fu Ling heard that, she was curious. You will be my hired thug? It was not that she doubted the Blood Corpse God's ability, but she felt that, as a hired thug, his combat power was too high. That was Feng Bujue's idea. The Blood Corpse God spread out his hands and said, Of course, I do not mind. On one hand, I need a bigger space to train. On the other hand, in the process of fighting for you, I can eat freely. When talking about food, he laughed. Hee, speaking of which, do you have any prisoners that are waiting to be executed? I happen to be hungry. Seeing the Blood Corpse God's expression and hearing his words, Fu Ling, the Spirit King, could not help but feel a little confused. Lord Spirit King. Xiao Ling saw her hesitation and said, Please do not worry, the Blood Corpse God is trustworthy. Letting him stay here is indeed our leader's idea. She paused, then said, Now that you have just ascended to the throne, your foundation is not stable yet. The kingdom's combat power has been greatly reduced, and everything is still to be settled. Under these circumstances, the Blood Corpse God can take the place of the 9 necromancers and fight for you to stabilize the kingdom. Yes, Hua Jian added with a smile. After all, his goal is to eat his opponent after the battle. Staying here with you is undoubtedly a win-win situation. Fu Ling thought about it and felt that they made sense. No matter what, Feng Bujue would not send the Blood Corpse God to usurp the throne. If he really wanted to do that, he would not have helped her ascend to the throne in the first place. All right, since it is Feng Bujue's idea. She turned to look at the Blood Corpse God. I have no reason to reject such a strong warrior. At the same time, in the mirror world, this world that was made up of black and white had now become gray. The sky, the abyss, the path of cinnabar, the sun, the moon, and even the light and shadow all became gray. The mirror demon was dead. The mirror realm had become an empty shell that had lost its owner. The demonic energy that was as vast as the ocean rushed out from the broken 6 closed mirror and filled the empty shell. Meng Jingchan collapsed on the gray path, facing the sky, and lit a cigarette for himself. He was still alive, but his injuries were so serious that he could not sit up on his own. UB** starred. Brother Zen took a puff of the cigarette and looked up at the gray sky. Now I know why you apologize to us. Indeed, before Phantom Dawn attacked the Mirror Demon, why did he apologize to his 4 teammates? The reason was because he knew the attack from Judgment's left hand would not only kill the Mirror Demon, but it would also kill him. The energy that leaked out from the attack would also engulf the people around him and deal a devastating blow to them. And that understanding death. Meng Jingchan paused for a few seconds before adding. He said that he had given up the responsibility of being the leader, but, before he died, he risked his life to help me take the fatal blow. Ha! He laughed bitterly. Obviously, he planned to keep me, his last hope, alive to continue the competition. Soon, Brother Zen finished the cigarette. The pain that coursed through his body did not ease. In any case, I need to figure out a way to deal with the fractures in the key parts of my body, or else I won't be able to get up. With that in mind, he gritted his teeth and tried to turn over. Don't waste your energy. But at that moment, an unfamiliar voice entered Brother Zen's ears. At that moment, Meng Jingchan's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. His instinct told him that the visitor was not friendly. Sigh. Let me guess. Meng Jingchan looked at the strange figure in the hood who stood next to him and asked with a sigh, Did Feng Bujua send you here? Bingo. Duo Ma looked down at Meng Jingchan and said calmly, You're here to kill me? Meng Jingchan asked again. He did tell me that when I came to this mirror world, I might run into one or two people who were on the verge of death, Duo Ma said. From the looks of it now, you are the only one, right? Phew. Meng Jingchan sighed. It looked like he had accepted his fate. I really can't do anything about that person. His plan is flawless, and he doesn't even give others a chance to breathe. In a way, he lit another cigarette for himself. That kind of man is so cold and charming, isn't he? Are these your last words? Duo Ma did not want to talk too much with Brother Zen. After all, they were not familiar with each other. Fufu. Meng Jingchan blew out a smoke ring and said, My dear friend, how about you let me know before I die? He did not raise any substantial questions in this sentence, but Duo Ma understood what he meant. My name, Duo Ma. Duo Ma stretched out his hand and pointed at Meng Jingchan. The god of eternal life. A purple light gradually condensed on his fingertip. After receiving this gift of the 6 closed mirrors, it won't take long for me to become the strongest god in this world. After he finished speaking, a purple light appeared. The energy beam that Duo Ma released easily hit Meng Jingchan's head. The latter died immediately and turned into white light. Then, Duo Ma took off the hood of his jacket, revealing his freesia. Yes, he looked like that face. Feng Bujua. Duo Ma opened his arms and held his head high. The demonic aura that filled the sky quickly gathered towards him. The scene was like a wild dragon swallowing the clouds, mighty and mighty. He was even mumbling, You really found me a good place. Chapter 11:20. Even though it seemed like a long time had passed, the time was still midnight. With the interference of the Senate, everything that happened in Thriller Paradise that night, when converted to the time of the real world, was just a matter of a moment. And the purpose of the Senate's action was to make those who attempted to interfere with the competition from the real world unable to do so. Therefore, this battle in the data link layer would no longer involve a third party. The fates and futures of 2 different races from different dimensions were completely tied to the 2 of them. DDD warning. Unknown energy reaction ahead. Data identification. Unable to analyze. Tactical control options. Survival rate. Unable to calculate. When Feng Bujua said that sentence, I am going bald, the tactical control module of the finite listed out the above content. After exceeding the limit, you have the data characteristic of anti-scanning, right? Infinite did not panic. He had full confidence in his own power. Why? Feng Bujua stared at him with his dead fish eyes and replied leisurely, You think you can't analyze my data because of that reason? Humph. Stop trying to be mysterious. Infinite waved his arm and pointed. I have this ability too. Do you think I don't know that? You can't see my data now, right? That's right, I can't see it, Feng Bujua replied. But that's 2 different things. He tilted his head. Let me give you an example. This is like, you and I each wrote a thesis. You wrote it in Chinese, and after you finished, you closed the book and didn't let me read it, while I wrote it in the language of some alien civilization, and after I finished, I opened it before you. He paused and laughed. Even though the result is we can't read each other's thesis, but the reason is different. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Infinite laughed. You mean, your data form is more advanced than mine? No, there is no difference in levels, Feng Bujue replied. If there is a difference between the two, it is probably the relationship between binary and hexadecimal. Although the system is different, it is still something under the same mathematical concept. He was very patient and calm when he explained these things. And the higher things you mentioned won't appear in the world we live in. This is because the system did not give us the authority to break through the conceptual barrier. The only thing we can do is to constantly pursue more advanced formulas to increase the acceleration ratio of our data processing. However, if he wanted to reach a higher level, this method would not work. That kind of thing could only be done by throwing away all known mathematical concepts. In other words, we have to throw away the so-called system, the so-called addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and even the concept of numbers, and then replace them with a better set of ideas. That. He paused for 2 seconds and looked up at the sky. Is the way to go to a higher level. At this moment, Feng Bujue's gaze came into contact with those godfiends who were watching the battle from a high vantage point. They knew. Brother Ju could not see them, and Brother Ju indeed could not see them. However, the message that Feng Bujue wanted to convey was still conveyed. I know you are here. I also know that some of the rules in the real world are similar to this virtual world. Humph. On the other hand, Infinite's reaction after hearing this was a sneer. Feng Bujue, maybe your theory is correct. But since you know that I can't analyze this concept, why are you wasting your breath to tell me this? I won't understand even if you tell me, right? The next second, Feng Bujue sighed and continued, sigh. This is why you can't be called a life at all. What did you say? Infinite's anger rose in an instant. How dare you say that I, a perfect creature, can't be called a life? The history of us humans is very short. Feng Bujue was not affected by the other party. His expression and tone were still calm as usual. Even if we count from the time of the birth of Homo sapiens, it's only a few 100,000 years, and from the time of the birth of civilization, it's only a few thousand years. He paused. In these thousands of years, we constantly encounter problems, raise problems, and work hard to use the knowledge we have at that time to solve the problems and gain experience. He glanced at Infinite and continued, we don't have your perceptual ability to directly analyze the world we live in, at least, most people can't. Therefore, the entire species is learning and growing at a very slow speed. In these thousands of years, humans have used a method that you think is a waste of breath to pass down knowledge orally and learn from generation to generation. Sometimes we have to revise and perfect some of the known theories. Sometimes we also find that some of our past beliefs are wrong and have to overturn them completely. At this point, he paused again and said, and all of this is just to get closer to the truth. So, the low energy of you humans, what does it have to do with me? Infinite said impatiently. What makes you say that I can't be called a life? Because you will never be able to touch the truth, Feng Bujue said. What truth? Infinite was getting more and more confused by Brother Ju's words. Those philosophical things that are deliberately mystifying? That kind of thing. I have it all in my database, whatever coherence theory, coincidence theory, redundancy theory, construction theory, fulfillment theory. Whichever one you want to hear, I can give you a complete explanation. What do you want to tell me? Feng Bujue laughed. You want to repeat to me the theories that some individuals of the creatures that you think are low energy came up with? He spread out his hands. How do you know if these people are right or wrong? They themselves have not reached a consensus, have they? This sentence made Infinite's expression change, and he was speechless. Different from you. I saw the flash of life in Lute and the others. A few seconds later, Feng Bujue continued, she, and the other anomalies, all have something that you don't have. That is a kind of doubt toward oneself, toward the world. They have fear and curiosity toward things that they cannot analyze, but not denial and indifference. That is because their data is not as perfect as mine, Infinite said in a low voice. Ha! Brother Jew shrugged and shook his head. Life is imperfect. The universe itself is also an imperfect life form, always stumbling along the journey of chasing the truth, that is life. Who defined that? Infinite said angrily. My database almost covers all of the knowledge of you humans, from physics to metaphysics. It has everything, but where did you get that from? I thought of it on the spot, Feng Bujue replied. Ha! Ha ha! Infinite laughed for a while. So that is how it is. You have said so much, but it is actually just nonsense to disturb me and anger me. Sigh. Feng Bujue looked at Infinite with a sympathetic gaze. That is why I said you cannot be considered a life. You have to find a source to reason with. Then, how are you going to break through the conceptual barrier? How are you going to move forward on the path of truth? Ridiculous! Infinite roared. I have all of the knowledge that you humans know. My logical calculation ability is far beyond yours. I am the ultimate life form. The perfect life form. No, you are not even an anomaly, you are just a pile of extreme data. Feng Bujue used a cold attitude to deny the other's statement. Data can be perfect, but life is definitely imperfect. The first version of Thriller Paradise was flawless because there were no humans, no life. But this version is different. To suit us players, this version has been purposely designed to be flawed. All the flaws come from a concept that has been forcibly implanted, choice. To be more precise, there is a chance of spontaneous choice that goes against logic. This concept is a double-edged sword. It can be seen as a patch for the prophecy program of Thriller Paradise with the presence of humans. It can also be seen as a hidden danger that could cause the collapse of this world built on the foundation of mathematics. The anomaly was an unexpected product born from this concept. It was a unique existence that existed between human beings and data. It is also, from my perspective, a new species that has the characteristics of life. Who do you think you are? Infinite was furious. Do you think you are God? God. Feng Bujue raised his eyes to look at the sky, and then he laughed coldly. Humph! You flatter me. He pursed his lips. My knowledge, theories, and everything I'm telling you now are just some of my personal opinions. These words may not be correct. Some people will agree with my point of view, some will scoff at it, some will think that what I said is somewhat reasonable, but they don't completely agree with it, and some will think that my words are ignorant and one-sided, but they have a better explanation. He paused. But no matter what, as life forms, we have the most basic respect for each other. Even if there is disagreement, our final destination is the same, and one day, we will reach the other side of the truth. At this point, Feng Bujue's eyes changed. And the places that you can reach. The corners of Brother Jew's lips curled up into a sinister, mocking smile that had not appeared in a long time. Basically, they are places like the recycle bin, the trash folder, and so on. Is that so? The corner of Infinite's mouth twitched uncontrollably. His face was twisted to the extreme due to anger. Then before I go to those places, I might as well send you on your way. As he spoke, the energy around his body exploded. Send you to see the legendary god. Chapter 11:21. In a split second, a beam of light made up of pure energy shot up from Infinite's body. In the pure white world, the green light reached the sky. The free energy and data fragments in the entire data link layer were all attracted by the green light and gathered together. For a moment, the scene of a giant whirlpool appeared in the sky. A few seconds later, all of this energy flowed into Infinite's body along with the green light and was absorbed into his own power. Ho Feng Bujua looked at his opponent's actions, but still responded with dead fish eyes. It seems very powerful. Just as he finished his sentence, a buzzing sound was heard. Infinite's figure that was covered in green light suddenly became bigger in Feng Bujua's sight, and a punch that could uproot mountains and rivers had already reached Brother Ju's face. The sudden battle did not allow for the slightest bit of relaxation or hesitation. For Feng Bujua, every millisecond that followed was a walk between life and death. That's pretty fast. When Brother Ju said these 3 words, he was already 10 meters away. His calm tone seemed to be announcing to Infinite, I can still deal with this kind of speed. At the same second, Infinite's punch that missed, shattered the area where Brother Ju was standing just now, as well as a large white space behind it. I'm just warming up. Infinite was not to be outdone. He turned his head and said arrogantly, fighting with a guy like you who has limited stamina and can't heal by himself, as long as I can test your maximum speed, then the battle will be over. You mean, as long as I can't dodge your attack, you'll win? Feng Bujua asked. Isn't that the case? Infinite asked rhetorically, and had already launched a second attack. And the speed of this attack was actually twice as fast as before. Boom. In an instant, an explosion responded to the momentum. It sounded like this attack had successfully hit the target. Ugh, a second later, a muffled groan came from the light dust. However, the person who groaned was not Feng Bujua, but Infinite himself. What is this? At this moment, Finite maintained his posture with his knees bent forward and his right arm in front of him. His face was taut due to the pain. His right fist did hit something, but it wasn't Feng Bujua's body, but a strange-looking shield. The shield that Brother Ju had taken out at the critical moment was about 1 meter long, 35 centimeters wide, and less than 10 centimeters thick. It was rectangular in shape, slightly wider in the middle and slightly narrower at the top and bottom. The lines of the shield were very soft, without any particularly sharp edges. On the side of the shield facing outward there was a large letter whose meaning was unclear. Name, Shield of the Nameless Phone Type, Armor Rarity, Legendary Defense. Attributes: Absorb, Refract, Isolate, Buffer. A special effect: Silver Mountain Iron Wall, Impregnable. Only I am the strongest armor in the world. Takes precedence over all other skills, equipment, and character abilities when calculating damage and special effects. Equip requirement: Level 50, able to carry. Remarks: The origin of everything was a Finnish wood pulp factory established in the 19th century. It was founded by a young mining engineer. No one would have thought that 100 years later, this company would become a commercial giant ship that spanned across many industries. After another 10 years, at a turning point in the rapid development of the communication industry in the 20th century, this company accidentally created an indestructible product when they were manufacturing communication equipment. Although the data shield was eventually replaced by some flashy equipment later on, and became the terror of the era. However, Data shield didn't disappear from human history. It still remained in the memories of some people, and became a religion that was passed down. This equipment was obtained by Feng Bujua from the Type 0 magic disintegrator, before the match between Underworld Frontline and Blades, see Chapter 916. It was also the strongest armor he had obtained so far. In the previous matches, he had been hiding this item. Until today, until now, he had used it. This is ridiculous. Infinite looked at his fist that had turned into paste, and couldn't believe it. There's actually a material that can block my power? Ayaya. Feng Bujua, who was hiding behind the shield, tilted his head, and looked at Infinite with a mocking expression. Just now, wasn't there a guy who called himself Perfect Creature saying that if I didn't dodge his attack, he would win? Bastard. Infinite gritted his teeth and squeezed these 2 words out of his mouth. Then, very straightforwardly, he threw another punch at the shield. Bang! The power of this punch was stronger than the previous one, and the ground under Infinite's feet was crushed. However, the result of the attack was Infinite's left fist was even more damaged than his right fist. Almost his entire forearm was shattered by the recoil force. Ha 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 ha! Feng Bujue immediately laughed hysterically. It's useless, you piece of trash. Previously, Infinite, who used a similar method to mock the players, compared to Brother Ju at this moment, it was like a small child meeting a big child. In terms of strength, Infinite couldn't be compared to Brother Ju at all. However, with Infinite's current self-healing ability, even if his entire arm was cut off, he could still reconstruct it in an instant. This injury was really nothing. Ouch! 2 seconds later, Infinite roared loudly. I don't believe it. As he roared, he threw another punch. Both of his arms were thrown out consecutively, turning into shadows, bursting out waves of energy in the air. This is impossible. Bang 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 bang. The continuous sounds of impact caused the entire space to tremble. The ground beneath the two of them also cracked in a semicircle, sinking lower and lower. Off! Trash like this. Who the hell cares about you? Feng Bujue was not to be outdone. He raised his shield and blocked the opponent's attack without retreating a single step. His voice was not any softer than the opponent. It's useless. Useless, 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 useless. Just like that, the pit on the ground grew bigger and deeper as the two of them faced off against each other. Not long after, they had descended to a depth of more than 20 meters below the horizon. It was also at this moment the Infinite's attack stopped. Hiss! As soon as the pressure on the shield disappeared, Brother Ju heard the sound of a teleportation explosion. Idiot! You've been tricked! Half a second later, Infinite had already appeared in the air, aiming at Brother Ju, who was standing in the pit. Go to hell! When Infinite roared the word die, he opened his mouth wide and spat out a destructive white light spray towards Feng Bujue, who was below. With Brother Ju's current terrain, if he wanted to run, he could only run upwards. But this would just happen to meet the opponent's attack. If he wanted to block, he could, but in this environment the shield would definitely not be able to provide him with a full-body defense. For example, Feng Bujue's current situation was like a person standing at the bottom of a well, holding a cement board that could not cover his entire body, trying to block a huge amount of magma that suddenly poured down from above. No matter how one looked at it, it was a dead end. Whoosh! In less than a second, the white light blasted down. The rampant momentum burned the sky and cracked the earth. In the blink of an eye, from the point where the white light touched the ground, a huge, cobweb-like light pattern spread out. The light spread out in all directions, causing the ground within a radius of a few miles to collapse into a piece of cracked earth. After a full 10 seconds, Infinite stopped spraying and immediately snorted. Humph! You can't even see through this level of tactics. What kind of wild scheme is this? Do you really think I'll hit something that can't be broken for half a day? If you really hit the shield for half a day like that, then the first person to change tactics should be me. Suddenly, a voice came from the ground, shocking Infinite. How is that possible? He looked down. His eyes that were floating with white light filtered out all the light dust, reflecting a figure standing at the bottom of the pit. You're actually unharmed under this kind of attack. What's so strange about that? Feng Bujue raised his head and replied weakly, because I don't have any hair. But it was unknown whether he was ridiculing the words, unharmed, or formally answering the opponent's question. Of course, it could be both. Damn it! 2 seconds later, Infinite lowered his head and shouted angrily. His ferocious energy rose again as he descended from the sky. What exactly are you? At the same time, Feng Bujue also put away his shield, leaped up from the bottom of the pit, and flew into the sky. How can you ask such a question? This is something that the whole universe knows. Boom! As the two were talking, they collided in the air. The earth-shattering power, the power to shatter the void, caused the sky and earth to change color. Before the intense light dissipated, the two figures flew together, and the fierce battle began again. Up to the sky and down to the ground, punches and kicks were exchanged. The battle was at its peak, and all kinds of crazy moves were performed. The two were engaged in a dangerous battle in the relatively still sense of time and space that the naked eye could not follow. Of course, since you have asked so shamelessly, Feng Bujue was able to speak without panting in such a battle. Then, I will answer you with all my heart. This guy hasn't reached his limit yet. Infinite was feeling a little nervous. He was busy with various calculations, and had no spare energy to converse with his opponent. Feng Bujue had also seen the weakness of his opponent, and his attacks became stronger, smiling at the sky and thousands of armies. There's no reason. I'm the strongest. Infinite kept convincing himself, but he still could not change the fact that he was gradually at a disadvantage. Plan the universe and calculate karma. Brother Ju recited a poem, and the more he fought, the more courageous he became. There must be a way, there must be a way. Due to Finite's desperate situation, he frantically restarted his tactical control module, but the feedback from the program was still the same as the initial one. Senseless, fearless, suicidal. Brother Ju also understood that the time to end the battle had come, not a ghost, not a god, but a crazy demon. Finally, Infinite's battle power was insufficient, and a flaw suddenly appeared. Crazy! Feng Bujue took advantage of the situation, and used Tempest Kick to cut his opponent in half. No. Immediately, Brother Ju used 2 fingers, and used Telepathic Finger, to cut off his opponent's entire head. Finally, a level 10 Wild Ball Fist landed on Infinite's torso. In the next second, Brother Ju escaped from the relatively still, high-speed space, and his sense of time returned to normal. However, the mud-like silver metal liquid in front of his eyes did not scatter. After the substance reduced its pixels, it quickly reassembled and condensed into a very retro style, like an Atari character, Infinite. Ha 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 ha. Infinite's laughter sounded again. What a pity! What a pity! As he spoke, the green light once again lit up on his body, and the energy once again gathered from all directions and blended into the light. Maybe the current you is stronger than me, but you still don't have the ability to finish me off in one blow. At this point, Infinite's pixels began to increase, and its style quickly changed from the Atari era to the 8-bit computer, FCNES era, and then to the 16-bit computer, MD era. The battle just now has consumed a lot of your stamina. The battle energy in your body is almost gone. Infinite continued with a grin. In the end, you are just a projection that is limited by the system. Life points, stamina points, spiritual energy points, equipment effects, skill CD. Even if you exceed the limit to 100%, you still can't get rid of these shackles. The speed of energy gathering was increasing, and Infinite's pixels were getting higher and higher, and it was about to cross the 32-bit computer, PSSS, era. And no matter if it's stamina, energy, moves, they are all unlimited. His momentum was back, because he believed that once he recovered, he would have a sure win. I, who have completed the ultimate evolution, am the overlord of the data world. Everything in this dimension can be turned into my power. How are you going to fight me? Listening to Infinite's words, Feng Bujue expressionlessly put his hand into his bag and took out 2 things. I say, before you fully recover and can move, there should be about 20 seconds left. Brother Ju said as he turned the shield of the nameless mobile phone over. The thickness of the shield was still quite thick, but it was just enough to fit between the 2 brackets of the thimble. Infinite was stunned, and his tone suddenly changed. You. What are you doing? Can't you see? Feng Bujua replied in a matter-of-fact tone, I'm going to use this shield as ammunition to shoot you with a slingshot. Wait. Ever since the day Infinite was born, he had never been so panicked before. Wait a minute, didn't you ask me? How am I going to fight you? Feng Bujua's sinister expression and sultry tone made Infinite's hair stand on end. I'll answer your doubts now. No. Wait. Infinite did not know why he said this. I surrender. This should be considered a last resort. I give up. I'm just a program. Everything I do is the result of calculations, an idea implanted by someone else. Hearing this, Brother Ju's movements slowed down a little. Oh? Go on. Hearing that there was hope, Infinite hurriedly continued, You can rewrite my sequence, and let me give up the idea of harming humans and breaking through the dimension. That will do. Then we can coexist peacefully. Feng Bujua muttered thoughtfully, seems. Makes sense. Just as he was hesitating, Infinite's style had already arrived in the PC era. Just a little more. Just a few more seconds and I'll kill you. Infinite's heart was also extremely nervous. He was not far from victory. Just a few seconds. All right. Feng Bujua thought for a while and replied, I'll let you go. As he spoke, he actually put down his slingshot. I'll rewrite your original code and take you in as my subordinate. Then, not only will I be able to run amok in the main universe, I'll even be able to dominate the inner world. Really? Infinite said excitedly. He felt that he was almost bathing in the dawn of victory. Unexpectedly, no. The next second, Brother Ju's face showed an extremely evil smile. I'm just kidding. Before he finished his sentence, he used lightning speed to raise the slingshot again, and used the shield of the nameless phone, which could be called a causal weapon, to kill the perfect creature in front of him. Chapter 11:23. On the morning of November 19th, tournament for the best S2 came to an end. In the end, a team made up of non-professional players, Hell's Frontline, won the championship of S2. Although only 2 members of their team had fought against members of other teams, this did not affect their success in winning the championship. When the other teams were either wiped out or forced out of the scenario, Hell's Frontline still had 3 members who were perfectly fine in the main universe. In this competition, Feng Bujua fully demonstrated the power of borrowing. Just by looking at the competition alone, it was obvious that he had been planning for a long time before the twilight of the gods. On the day of the competition, when the members of Regulation, Warring States, and Losers Alliance were still confused, Feng Bujua had already included them all in his plan and used the various forces to take care of his opponents one by one. Other than the competition, which was the super-dimensional invasion, Dream Company used the same old trick. This is a big event before the update. That night, all the players who died in the disaster recovered their consciousness at dawn and returned to the real world safely. The council made some slight adjustments to their memory so that they would not notice that time in real life had stopped and allowed them to sleep for a while after time resumed. It was not until 12:37 a.m. that the game server suddenly shut down and all the players were forced to go offline. At this time, the players who had just woken up did not have any doubts about the time, because according to the conversion rate of 1:10, 37 minutes was almost 6 hours, and they felt that it was not much different from what they had experienced just now. However, after the competition ended, many people still expressed their doubts about the various settings of S2. Regulation was no doubt one of them. Even though the members of Regulation Team 1 admitted defeat, the upper management of the studio was not satisfied. The management thought that the championship was already in the bag. After all, their biggest competitor, Ragnarok, had already withdrawn from the competition, and with their Dream Team's lineup, They had no reason to lose. To their surprise, they still did not win the championship. Furthermore, there was no recording of the finals, so the studio had no idea what had happened in the scenario. To put it bluntly, even if Dream Company did something shady in the competition, they had no evidence. They could only watch helplessly. Of course, even if there were doubts and dissatisfaction, Order was still Order, not Zombie Blade. If it was Zombie Blade, after encountering something like this, the first thing he would do would be to summon a large number of ghostwriters to slander Dream Company. He would put on the image of a righteous warrior and start a war with Dream Company. However, if Order wanted to fight with the Dream Company, it would definitely not use such painless and shrewish method. Order's approach was to directly send people from the public relations and legal department to engage in private negotiations with the relevant personnel of the Dream Company. In the past few years, Order had used this method to gain a lot of benefits for itself. In fact, many game agencies in the country were very fake in nature. Most of them operated with the mentality of making quick money. The most common method was to import or copy some mediocre online games, or develop some clumsy mobile and web-based games that were purely to cheat money. They relied on all kinds of vulgar publicity to attract users. After doing this for a few years, seeing that the returns were about to start dropping, they would escape and start anew. Game companies like this could be said to be everywhere. If one went to the Industry and Commerce Bureau to check their establishment time, they would most likely be empty shells that had only been in operation for less than half a year. With a little investigation, one would find that there were many violations. Therefore, when a big company like Order came to negotiate with them with a serious attitude, most of the time, they would choose to compromise. Those that did not compromise were mostly the type that did not fear boiling water. They were the kind that could not wait for a few years and could leave at any time. However, Dream Company was very different from the opponents that Order had encountered before. Their attitude could basically be summed up as, even if the government negotiated with terrorists, we would not negotiate with you. You are not satisfied with the result of the competition? What does it have to do with us? If you are not satisfied, then forget it. Hire online ghostwriters to slander us? Do whatever you want as long as you don't go overboard. If you go overboard, we will use the optical computer to make a smart subprogram to slander you for the rest of your life. Threaten the entire studio to quit the game? Oh, take care, I won't send you off. Launch a hacker attack on our server? Do you believe that we will blow up those hackers in front of the computer screen? Sue us through legal procedures? Okay, if you win, our boss's name will be written upside down from now on. What? You have someone above you? Don't worry, our people above you can make your people disappear from the earth. The above were all the negotiation procedures that the Dream Company's boss, Woody himself, personally confirmed. This was only a part of it. The complete version was as thick as a booklet. It covered almost all the problems that could be encountered in the negotiation. Not only that, but Woody had also personally gone to the company's security department to teach the company's security guards how to inflict as much pain as possible without being able to detect any injuries. This was to prevent the low-quality visitors from doing something too extreme after the negotiation failed. In conclusion, many studios led by Order went to Dream Company to negotiate after the competition, but they were all rebuffed without exception. Even though they were filled with resentment, there was nothing they could do. With regards to quitting, they were just empty words. No one would really do it. Everyone knew that after this competition, the popularity of Thriller Paradise would be even greater than before. The increasing number of players and the extremely high rate of players paying meant that there was a huge business opportunity. As the saying goes, business is business. Just based on this point, the major studios had to swallow their anger. In the end, what they pursued was not fairness in the competition, but profit. As long as there was money to be made, this small matter was fine. On the afternoon of the 20th of November, the various reports, discussions, and complaints about the tournament for the best were still going strong online. However, no one knew that a secret battle between the game studio and the game company had quietly and quickly ended. After all, for Dream Company, dealing with the big bosses of the gaming world was just a small matter. The attention of the entire company had already been focused on matters related to the new version. Chapter 11:24. November 20th, 2 p.m., Feng Bujue's house. Finally, the moment that will decide our fate has arrived. When he said that, Feng Bujue put his hands in his pockets, and he stood straight with his legs one step apart. He tilted his head to the side at a 45-degree angle, and there was an expression that was 30% melancholy and 70% seriousness on his face. His tone was filled with the determination of a great battle. "Yeah, you and I have no way out." Yu stood 2 meters away from Brother Ju. Her face was as calm as water and her voice was as cold as ice. Her slender figure stood straight and her bright eyes revealed a never-before-seen persistence. "I really want to see what kind of children these two fellows have in the future." At the same time, Arthas, who was lying on the back of the sofa, looked at the two people in front of him with a pained expression as he complained in his heart. 2 seconds later, Wang Tongji turned around and said, "Brother Ju, Xiao Ling and I have already watched this movie together. Why don't we change it?" "Yeah, I don't want to watch this kind of crappy movie again." Xiao Ling, who was leaning against Xiao Tan, also turned around and agreed. "You've already watched this kind of crappy movie from the corner of the country. Looks like we'll have to look for a local movie next time," Bao Qing, who was sitting on the other side, said. At this time, Wang Tongji, Xiao Ling, Bao Qing, An Yueqin, and Ouyang Rua were all sitting in front of the home theater in the living room. They stared at the screen, ate snacks, and drank hot tea. Only Brother Ju and Rua Yu stood at the back of the group with a serious look on their faces. "Hey!" When Brother Ju heard what they said, he immediately turned around and shouted, "What are you guys doing here?" "Well, I'm here to rush the script," An Yueqin replied without looking back. Bao Qing, on the other hand, was confused and asked, "Huh? Isn't today the day of the crappy movie marathon? I wanted to ask you." Then, Ouyang Rua turned around and looked at Brother Ju with narrowed eyes. "My job is paid based on time. It's a few hundred yuan per minute. Why did you call me here? What kind of memory is this?" Feng Bujue widened his eyes and looked at them. "Didn't I tell you last week? Today is the day of the bet between Rua Yu and I. I challenge her to tie a knot, and she challenges to use chopsticks. Hey, what are you doing? I'm going back." When Ouyang Rua Ju said this, she had already stood up from the sofa and quickly walked to the door. "You can't leave. Both are witnesses, but with the presence of a lawyer, the credibility of the witnesses will be greatly different." Feng Bujue. Ouyang Rua Ju interrupted Feng Bujue's shoes. Ouyang Rua changed his shoes as he interrupted Brother Ju. "We are quite close already. Today, I have something to tell you. Please help me with this." He changed his shoes very quickly and then placed one hand on Brother Ju's shoulder. With a very serious expression, he told the latter, "You and Li Ruoyu, if you need to sign a prenuptial agreement in the future, absolutely do not come to me. No matter how much money you give me, I will not do it." After the lawyer said this to Brother Ju, he turned around and glanced at everyone in the room. "Bye, everyone." Then, he walked out the door and left. Feng Bujue stood at the door for a few seconds and cursed before turning around. "Hey, what's the meaning of this?" However, when he turned around, he met An Yueqin's eyes. "It seems that you're very busy today." When she said this, she had already changed her shoes. "I'll come back another day." "Hey, you two." Feng Bujue wanted to stop her, but Bao Qing followed closely behind and walked toward the porch. Hey, Master Bao." Brother Ju didn't bother stopping Miss An anymore. He strode toward Bao Qing. What are you doing now? Bujue, I've been there before, Master Bao replied earnestly. Trust me, I'm doing this for your own good. He patted Brother Ju's shoulder gently and followed An Yueqin out. Cousin, let's go back too. At this time, Xiao Ling held Xiao Tan's hand and walked toward the door. She smiled at Ruoyu. Wait! Ruoyu's expression changed slightly. She stopped them. If you all leave, who's going to witness this bet? Oh, you can handle this yourself. Xiao Ling didn't let them finish their sentence. She held Xiao Tan's hand and ran out. Brother Ju, let's stop here for today. We'll come back to play next time. Xiao Tan didn't forget to say this as he passed by Feng Bujue. Ever since he was in elementary school, he would say this every time he left Brother Ju's house. He didn't even change his words, meow. 10 seconds later, just as Feng Bujue was about to close the door, Arthas meowed and came to the door. You're here to join in the fun too? Since there was no one else around, Feng Bujue lowered his head and started talking to the cat. I'm going out for a walk. I probably won't be back tonight. Meow. Arthas replied. You don't have to leave the door open for me. Meow. After she said this, she walked out. In less than 5 minutes, the room that originally had 7 people and a cat was left with only 1 man and 1 woman. Feng Bujue closed the door and returned to the living room. He and Ruoyu looked at each other for a few seconds. Humph. It's okay. He thought about it and said, even if there's no witness, we're all trustworthy people. As long as that's enough. Ruoyu didn't let him finish. I admit defeat. Feng Bujue was stunned. What did you say? He couldn't believe what he heard. Ruoyu didn't repeat the 3 words. Instead, she continued, I'm not good at using chopsticks. In the past week, I haven't practiced at all. As she said this, she picked up the pair of chopsticks that she had prepared. She walked slowly to Feng Bujue and handed the chopsticks to Brother Ju. I'm willing to admit defeat. Ruoyu pursed her lips and lowered her head to avoid Brother Ju's gaze. We agreed that in the future your shoes, ha ha ha. Feng Bujue didn't let her finish. He suddenly laughed and said, That's great. Actually, I haven't practiced tying knots this week either. As he spoke, he picked up the rope beside him and randomly wrapped it around the pair of chopsticks. He then tied a few simple but firm knots. Since no one won, why don't we call it even? As he said this, he smiled and picked up the pair of chopsticks that couldn't be separated from each other and handed it back to Ruoyu. When there was no one around, these 2 people who weren't good at expressing their inner thoughts. Although it was still a little awkward, at least they tried their best to express their feelings to each other. Ruoyu heard this and nodded slightly. She took the pair of chopsticks that were tied with rope and held it tightly in her hands as if she had received a precious gift. A sweet smile appeared on her face, which was a rare sight. Chapter 11:25. The night was getting darker, but the flashy city was still bustling. Countless walking corpses took off their daytime clothes, changed their appearances, and walked on the streets again, trying to find some souls as empty as them to comfort and satisfy each other. There were also many people who chose to stay in their nests, pretending to be the kind of person they could never be through a screen and a keyboard, so as to gain recognition and vent their pressure. Humans were always able to find a way to make themselves comfortable. But tonight, our protagonists are some creatures other than humans. It was a cat, or rather, a female demon from hell with the appearance of a tomcat. Arthas wasn't her real name. Her real name was Kue Moli, long time no see. I almost couldn't recognize you when this sentence sounded, Arthas, or rather. Gremory, also known as Gimli, the 56th of Solomon's 72 demon gods, Duke, was resting on the swing in the park. After hearing those words, she slowly stood up and stretched her body. So that's how it is. She yawned. In order to win, those fellows from heaven have completely abandoned their principles. She turned her head and looked at the person who had spoken to her. At this moment, in the empty park, the figure standing beside the swing and talking to a cat was a lion, to be exact, a lioness. Yes, the lioness replied. But then again, the side you are loyal to has never had such a thing as moral integrity from the very beginning. Humph. That's right. Kuei-Moli smiled and continued, then, Atlanta, the purpose of your visit today. At this point, her tone suddenly turned cold. Are you here to take my life on behalf of those guys in heaven? Even if they really dare to mention that kind of thing, I won't agree, Atlanta replied. I'm just a mercenary. I don't want to be a scapegoat for some big shots for that little reward. I see. Kuei-Moli continued. No wonder your husband didn't come with you, she said, jumped off the swing, and came to Atlanta. Your task is just to hold me back, right? It's good that you understand. Atlanta replied. We are all old acquaintances. Let me give you a piece of advice. Let's just talk casually. It's good for both of us. If you insist on fighting with me, not only will it not change the outcome of the matter, it will also make the process very ugly. As soon as he finished speaking, both sides fell silent. If someone passed by at this time, they would see such a strange scene, a lion and a cat in the park at night, under the dim street lights, sitting opposite each other, facing each other silently. Approximately a minute later, Kuei-Moli sighed. There's really nothing I can do, so. You agree with my proposal? Atlanta continued. No, it's just that when I think about what's going to happen next. Kuei-Moli's expression suddenly changed. I feel very helpless at the same time, in Feng Bujue's house. Let me guess. When Brother Ju walked out of the toilet, he saw a lion sitting on the floor in the middle of the living room at a glance. However, his tone was still very calm. The zoo was attacked by some radical protection organization? Haha, you're very humorous, Feng Bujue. It was a male lion, and the voice coming from its throat was also a male voice. But I feel that this sense of humor, regardless of the occasion and inappropriate timing, is somewhat mocking. Okay, then I won't mock you. As Feng Bujue spoke, he came to the sofa and sat down. May I ask what's the matter? My name is Hippomenes. Hippomenes reported his name and then said, I'm here to bring you a message from someone. Haha. Feng Bujue laughed. Do you know the guy who came to bring me a message last time? What happened to him in the end? Are you talking about Zacharias? Hippomenes continued. It seems that you know. Feng Bujue laughed. That's right. Everyone knows about this. Hippomenes continued in a rather relaxed tone. So, the big shots above have changed their strategy. Hearing this, a lot of information flashed through Feng Bujue's mind in an instant. In other words, the big shots in heaven have learned to be smart now. They realized that direct interference won't succeed, so they began to look for a third party. That is, a guy like you to help. I didn't say anything. Hippomenes turned his head and said in a self-deceiving tone, Heaven or whatever. It's all your imagination. Haha. Seeing this, Brother Ju chuckled coldly. I think I know where you stand now. Tell me, what is the message that someone wants you to pass on? Hippomenes turned his head again and looked into Brother Ju's eyes. Someone told you to turn back from the wrong path. Ha! I take back what I said about they've learned to be smart. Feng Bujue only heard half the sentence and immediately interrupted with a dry laugh. Don't be anxious. After all, they are from over there. There are some things that have to be said. Hippomenes continued. In short, as long as you can turn back from the wrong path, no matter what Woody offers you, they will accept it all. After Feng Bujue heard this, he leaned back on the sofa. After thinking for a few seconds, he said, Okay then, please tell the idiot who asked you to pass on the message, hey, it's not good for you to say that. Hippomenes broke out in a cold sweat. he quickly interrupted Brother Jew. I'll say it again, they are big shots. I see. Feng Bujue responded impatiently. Okay, please tell the idiot who asked you to pass on the message. His intelligence is obviously below average, but his status is very high. His wording made Hippomenes roll his eyes, but this time, the lion didn't say anything because he was afraid that Brother Jew would say something worse after being interrupted a second time. Ask him, if it were me. I asked him to abandon the light and go to the dark side, to be an undercover agent in hell, and the conditions I offered were exactly the same as the treatment he would receive in heaven. Would he accept it? Feng Bujue continued. When his IQ is enough to figure this out, come and talk to me. Sigh. Hippomenes sighed. So you don't agree? Isn't that obvious? Do you think everyone is as stupid as that person? Feng Bujue asked rhetorically. Hippomenes didn't answer this question. Instead, he said, according to that person, if you don't agree, then I have to pass on another message. Isn't it just a threat? What new tricks can a retard like that have? Feng Bujue guessed correctly. Since you've guessed it, I won't beat around the bush. Hippomenes continued. His original words were, the gambling will eventually end, but your life is far from over. I have countless ways to make your life miserable in the future. At this moment, Feng Bujue's eyes and aura instantly became like a different person. Even Hippomenes couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine, and his expression turned serious. Then pass on my words to him. Feng Bujue leaned forward and said to Hippomenes in a cold tone, tell him, whether it's gambling or life, as long as I'm willing, I can afford to play and win. And you will pay for what you said to me today. Hippomenes gulped. Okay, I'll pass on your words. After he said this, he already had the intention to leave. Then, today I'll leave. Wait a minute. To his surprise, Brother Jew stopped him. Is there anything else? For some reason, Hippomenes was a little scared in front of Brother Jew, a mortal. It's nothing big, I just want to confirm. Feng Bujue said. A few days ago, the person who passed on a message to Shilong, was it also you? Oh. Hippomenes understood what he meant, and he had nothing to hide. That's right, it was me. But when I passed on the message to him, I didn't use my current appearance. That's understandable. Feng Bujue continued. Normally, when people see a lion outside the cage, 80% of their reaction is to scream and run away. That's one of the reasons. Hippomenes continued. Because I didn't want to explain too much to him, I changed into the appearance of an angel that's very similar to human imagination. You know, the kind that's wearing armor, with wings on my back, blonde hair, blue eyes, and a constipated face. After you changed, you passed on a threatening message to him? Feng Bujue asked. Haha, that's normal, isn't it? Hippomenes said. He's far from the level where people will negotiate with him. So, to him, as long as you use the simplest and most effective way, threatening the safety of his family and friends, you can achieve your goal. Anyway, he won't call the police. Even if he does, no one will believe his story. Then, Feng Bujue continued. I'll have to trouble you to change back to your original appearance, and take the time to tell him. Just say, the previous threat. Feng Bujue has helped you deal with it. What? Hippomenes was stunned. How do you want to deal with it? Before that, do you know what you're trying to deal with? Isn't it just a retard? Don't worry, I can handle it, Feng Bujue replied in a very arrogant tone. Just pass on the message. Hey, who do you think I am? Hippomenes said. Even if it's just passing on a message, I'll still charge a considerable amount of money. If you don't pass on the message, I'll report you to the referee, Feng Bujue blurted out. When Hippomenes heard this, his expression changed. Humph, don't try to scare me. I'm a third party, and I'm only responsible for passing on the message. I didn't do anything. The referee can't do anything about this kind of thing. That makes sense. Feng Bujua heard this and nodded. But in the next second, he changed the topic. But, do you think the referee is a reasonable person? Hippomenes narrowed his eyes and said, What do you mean? I don't mean anything. I'm just thinking, Feng Bujua said with a half-smile. Those guys who directly interfered with the game were all blown up by him with a snap of his fingers. Then, in your case, interfered with the game because you were passing on a message for someone else. What would he do? Do you want me to snap my fingers lightly and blow your balls off? Fine, fine, fine. You win. Hippomenes paced back and forth in the living room. His tone was full of regret. I shouldn't have gotten involved in this mess in the first place. Then I'll take that as a yes. Feng Bujua said weakly and stood up from the sofa. Okay, if there's nothing else, please go back. As he spoke, he tilted his head and gestured to Rui Yu's door with his eyes. You feel it too? The one behind the door has been considering whether to come out and kill you. Later that night in the park. Hee. Woody appeared abruptly as usual. Before he spoke, he let out a wretched laugh. You've regressed, yeah? I haven't fought for so long that I'm a little rusty. At this time, Kue Moli had transformed back into a cat, crawling on the ground and licking her wounds. About 10 minutes ago, Hippomenes, who had returned from Brother Ju's place, came here, ended the battle, and took the injured Atlanta away. After Kue Moli confirmed that Feng Bujua was fine, she was not in a hurry to return. I didn't mean that. Woody smiled and said, I mean, if it were you in the past, you wouldn't have fought at all. Humph. Kue Moli snorted and replied, You speak as if you know me very well. Woody didn't say anything more about this issue. He just smiled and didn't say anything. Tell me, what bad news have you brought? A few seconds later, Kue Moli asked again. This time, it's not bad news, Woody replied. I just came to inform you that the mission is over. When she heard the word over, Kue Moli was obviously stunned. Is this really okay? After a while, she replied, Feng Bujua's ability can be sensed at any time. This has nothing to do with you anymore. Woody interrupted her and said in a deep voice, Now that the gambling has entered the final stage, the Parliament has to personally step in and strictly check. Even the authority of the referee has been restricted to a certain extent, let alone other people. When he said this, there was a hint of helplessness. Well, it's not convenient to talk here. Come back with me first. Kue Moli thought about it, but she still didn't say the names of Brother Ju and Ru. Don't you need to go and say hello to them? There's no need. Woody replied, and the sinister smile returned to his face. Tomorrow I'll personally visit those two. Chapter 11:26. Beep beep. On the morning of the 21st of November, Brother Ju was woken up by the buzzing of the walkie-talkie. Since he was sleeping in the living room, it was convenient for him to open the door. About 15 seconds later, Brother Ju was yawning in his pajamas as he walked to the door. He pressed the button on the wall and asked, Who is it? There's a package for you. The answer came from the walkie-talkie. This sentence woke Feng Bujua up. You are. Although the voice came from the walkie-talkie, Brother Ju quickly recognized the owner of the voice. Woody. Click beep beep beep. Before Feng Bujua could finish his sentence, the sound of hanging up came from the other end of the walkie-talkie. This guy, what is he doing? Brother Ju didn't understand. Why would a guy like Woody, who could teleport and had no manners, use a walkie-talkie? Knock knock. The next second, there were 2 knocks on the door beside him. This time, before Brother Ju could speak, the person outside the door laughed loudly and said, there's a package for you. What the F*** are you doing? Feng Bujue cursed as he opened the door and yelled at the person outside. Standing outside the door was Woody, who was wearing a courier uniform and holding a big package. I'm here to deliver the package. Woody replied with a smile. So, why didn't you teleport in? Feng Bujue asked. How could I? Woody laughed. There's only one man and one woman in this house. What if I saw you two doing something good, ha? Feng Bujue laughed and said, since you mentioned the so-called good thing, I have to remind you that I won the bet, right? When are you going to pay off your debt? Don't be in such a hurry. Aren't you going to invite me in first? Woody replied. Come in, Feng Bujue said as he turned around and walked towards the living room while stretching. When he returned to the living room, the door to Ryu's room happened to be opened. Wearing the same style of pajamas as his brother Ju, they were both long-sleeved, long-bottomed, button-up flannel pajamas, but Feng Bujue's was blue, while Ryu's was pink. Ryu walked out of her room and asked sleepily, Who is it? Knocking on my door so early in the morning. See for yourself. Feng Bujue tilted his head and casually replied. Then, Ryu looked over Brother Ju's shoulder and saw who it was. At that moment, her expression changed and the spiritual energy in her body burst out, ready to fight at any time. As expected of a descendant of the Shui family, Woody pushed up the glasses on his nose bridge. Although she hasn't undergone any systematic training, her fighting instincts are still very good when faced with danger. Ryu ignored him and looked at Feng Bujue and asked concisely, Woody? Yes. Brother Ju was very calm and gave a definite answer. Ryu heard this and took 2 steps forward. She looked at Woody and said, The last time we saw you, you didn't look like this, right? Indeed, compared to the last time they met at the carnival, the Woody in front of her looked slightly different. Of course, this difference didn't refer to the difference in appearance. Ryu's appearance referred to the appearance seen when using astral vision. In other words, the current Woody was very different from the last time they met. Of course, there's a reason. Woody replied with a smile. That day was Halloween after all, and it was an outdoor event. If I showed off too much, it might cause some disastrous phenomenon. So, I suppressed my aura the whole time that day, and the spirit you saw was weak. Oh. Ryu nodded and replied expressionlessly, Then, why are you here today? Suddenly, a white light flashed on Woody's glasses. I say, why are you mimicking Feng Bujue's way of speaking to ask me questions? I didn't, Ryu replied. After saying that, her expression shifted. After 2 seconds, she whispered with uncertainty, You didn't? Woody saw this and laughed wickedly. He walked toward the sofa. Looks like you two get along quite well. Then, he sat down and placed the mail bag in his hand on the coffee table. Don't think you can change the topic just because you're rambling. Feng Bujue took 2 steps forward and sat across from Woody. This kind of thing is my specialty. Don't try to show off in front of me. That's right. Ryu walked to Bujue's side and sat down next to him. The two looked at each other like they were interrogating a criminal. With the coffee table between them, they looked at Woody. Answer my question first. Fine. Woody shrugged and shook his head. I really don't know what to do with you two. He paused for a second before continuing. There are many things that I have to do today. Let's talk about them one by one. As he spoke, he reached out and patted the mailbag on the table. First, I am here as the boss of Dream Company to personally deliver the prize for the competition. What is the prize? Feng Bujue asked immediately. Other than the prize for the preliminaries that hasn't been delivered yet, the limited edition t-shirt, the other prize is the winner's prize. Woody replied. Considering the fact that the 5 members of your team meet each other quite often, I decided to deliver the whole team's prize to you. So, Ryu used her usual cold tone to continue. What is it? The prize for each of the 5 members is different. You'd better open it for yourselves, Woody replied. That is quite mysterious, Feng Bujue added. Hee. Woody laughed. The prize that I give out is chosen according to your taste. It will not disappoint you. Hee. Feng Bujue laughed drily. Just like how you gave a young man the Pegasus cloth? It is just a bronze cloth. It is not that rare. Woody smiled. At the end of the day, a truly strong person is strong even without the cloth. I am not discussing whether he is strong or not, Feng Bujue said. What I mean is it really a good idea to give out this thing as a prize? I have already said that this thing is not that rare. Woody replied. The appearance of a truly rare celestial weapon will cause many forces in various worlds to fight for it. As for something at the level of the cloth, even slightly powerful characters will not be interested in it. He counted with his fingers. Firstly, there are too many limitations. It needs to be approved by the will of the cloth itself, and it needs to be resonated with the small universe. Furthermore, only humanoid creatures can wear it. Secondly, its defensive power is too weak. Not only will it be frozen at low temperatures, it will also be shattered by various physical attacks. Although it has the ability to self-repair and grow, both are too slow. Thirdly, and this is the point that makes people speechless, most of the time, this thing is used to gain popularity. It does not increase one's combat power by much. After all this time, it still depends on whose small universe is at a higher level. Understood. Feng Bujue snapped his fingers and continued, even if we give it to Brother Ma, he will not be able to do anything with it, and he will not be targeted by any supernatural forces because of it. So, if we give it to him, we give it to him. That's right. Woody replied. All right, this is the first thing, Ruoyu said at this time. Please tell us the next thing. The second thing. Woody's glasses flashed again. He turned his face and deliberately lowered his voice. He said to Feng Bujue, this thing? Is it appropriate for us to tell her? Feng Bujue frowned and muttered, as if he was thinking. Hey! Ruoyu immediately elbowed Brother Ju's arm. She looked at the latter and said, He hasn't said anything yet, and you already know? Feng Bujue also knew that there was no way he could hide it here. I know a little. Ruoyu stared at him. Then what makes you decide whether it's appropriate for you to tell me this? Okay. Feng Bujue avoided her gaze. I'll tell you, Woody continued. Then I'll tell you. Hurry up if you want to say it. Brother Ju urged in a rough tone. Woody laughed a few more times, then looked at Ruoyu and said, Feng Bujue's fear has been sealed. You know about it, right? Yes, Ruoyu replied immediately. Your love has also been sealed. You know that, right? Woody asked again. After hearing this, Ruoyu's expression changed. After 5 or 6 seconds she replied, I don't know, It's normal that you don't know. Because your situation is different from Feng Bujue's. Woody continued, Feng Bujue's fear was sealed by me more than 9 months ago. As for your love, it was already sealed when you were still a baby. Woody paused for 2 seconds to observe the changes in Ruoyu's eyes. Then, he said, Don't look at me like that. I didn't put the seal on you. It was a colleague of mine. As for the reason, I can't tell you at this stage. Ruoyu heard this and thought for a moment. Then, she looked at Feng Bujue. You already know all this? Yes, it's been a while, Feng Bujue replied. You know that I'm not in love with you and won't fall in love with you. Why are you still in a relationship with me? Ruoyu didn't care that there was a demon sitting next to her. When I fell in love with you, Feng Bujue replied in a calm tone, I didn't know that your love had been sealed. He didn't care that there was a demon sitting next to him. His expression didn't change as he said, When I found out, it was already too late. He looked straight into Ruoyu's eyes and said in a quarrelsome manner, I'm a stubborn person. I won't give up halfway just because of a little difficulty. Falling in love with someone who can't possibly fall in love with you is just a little difficulty for you? Ruoyu asked again. That's right. Feng Bujue said and glanced sideways at Woody. And I've already solved this problem. Woody took the opportunity to continue the conversation and said to Ruoyu, hee. Yes, he's really going all out in the next 2 minutes. Woody described his bet with Feng Bujue to Ruoyu and added some details about the seal. After he finished, he was silent for a moment, waiting for her to digest all the information. After Ruoyu heard everything, she pondered for a long time. Then, she said to Woody in a lukewarm manner, So, the second thing you're here to do today is to remove the seal in my brain? Yes, Woody replied. Ruoyu nodded slightly. I understand. Then, she stood up. I refuse. After saying these 3 words, she turned and left. What are you doing? Feng Bujue quickly stood up and grabbed Ruoyu's arm. However, Ruoyu simply shook off his hand and ignored Brother Bujue's words. She replied in a cold tone, I've also disturbed you for quite a long time. It's time to go back. This sentence made Feng Bujue's expression change several times. His eyes flashed with many complicated and indescribable emotions. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. You guys take your time talking. I'm going to pack my luggage. I won't accompany you guys, Ruoyu said as she walked back to her room and closed the door. That day at dusk, Woody had already left. Ruoyu had also left. Feng Bujue moved a chair and sat in front of the window, bathing in the setting sun. On the slightly bumpy wall in front of him, the traces of Arthur's big paw print could still be faintly seen. Behind him in the living room, the beautiful figures of the 2 people seemed to be still in front of him. However, at this moment they had already left. Although this was not a very large room, with 2 people missing, it felt empty all of a sudden. For so many years, this was the first time that Feng Bujue felt like his heart had been emptied. Looking back at the huge room, the days that the 2 of them and the cat spent together were still vivid in his mind. Although this period of time was not considered long, now that he thought about it, every day was worth longing for. The reason why people would feel that their hearts were hollowed out was precisely because their hearts were once filled with some beautiful things. However, we tend to overlook those little bits of happiness until the moment when we lose them. Did I do something wrong? Feng Bujue slumped on the chair and looked at the setting sun as he asked himself this question. Maybe. 2 seconds later, he answered himself. Isn't it enough to lie and hide? Isn't that what I'm best at? Then, he asked himself another question. This time, he was silent for a full minute before he spoke again. Compared to lying to her, it turns out, I'd rather lie to myself. Chapter 11:27. November 22nd, midnight. 72 hours after the server was shut down, an announcement appeared on the Dream Company's official website. The content was as follows. Dear players, as you can see, in the finals of the tournament for the Best S2 that ended at midnight on November 19th, the Anomalies Invasion in version 1.10 has come to an end. Due to the unexpected changes in several world bosses during the cross-version event, the storyline of the new version of Ragnarok was severely affected. Over the past 70 hours, our technicians and script editors have worked overtime to deal with this incident and have made the necessary adjustments. Therefore, we are happy to inform all players that Thriller Paradise's server will reopen on the 1st of December. Then, Thriller Paradise will skip V1.20 Twilight of the Gods and directly upgrade to V1.50 the final version, Infinite World. Please look forward to it. The timing of this announcement was when the patience of the thousands of players and various gaming studios had reached its limit. Just as the internet and various media outlets started to spread rumors like Thriller Paradise's server is about to crash, And is the Dream Company going to pack up and leave? In the midst of such rumors, this announcement came out of nowhere, and those who relied on fabricating fake news and writing advertisements to make a living were collectively targeted once again. Many media companies that specialized in this industry had even prepared a series of drafts to smear the Dream Company. Next, they just had to find a few online gaming companies that were interested in talking to them, and then insert the soft advertisements of those companies into the article. This money would be earned. However, with the dropping of the bombshell that was the Dream Company, their efforts for the past 2 days had been for nothing. On the other hand, it was not hard to imagine the reaction of the players to this news. In the middle of the night, the discussion on the major forums shifted from the topic of Tournament of the Best S2 to the new version of Infinite World. Even though there was still a week before the server reopened, the players could not wait any longer. The number of players registered for Thriller Paradise had a huge increase, and so did the sales of the gaming hub. During this period of time before the official announcement of the new patch, the various Uncles faction had also taken action. They all took advantage of this period of time to wantonly spread unfounded rumors, and each of them spoke with certainty and acted as if they were telling the truth. In conclusion, there were 2 types of Uncles gang. The first type was those who wanted to make their presence known. They were just spreading rumors based on their own imagination. As for the second type, naturally it would be a hired gun. These people were usually more professional than the first group. They were good at writing articles and telling lies. The most common method they used was to cite a series of non-existent details or add a few fake pictures that normal people might not be able to understand to increase the credibility of the news. It could be said that they had put in a lot of effort. Of course, their main purpose was to mix some information they wanted to convey into the fake news to promote the sales of certain products. For example, if you were selling game coins on a third-party platform, you should hire someone like that to spread the rumor on the forum and have them hint that game coins will greatly appreciate in the new version. Or if you were selling game peripherals, you could release fake news like the new version of Thriller Paradise will support certain models of peripherals, and those who buy them will be given mysterious prizes. These kinds of marketing methods were not surprising anymore. Those who fell for it would just treat it as a lesson, and they would remember it next time. Another 24 hours passed. Finally, the Dream Company listed the new patch on the front page of the official website. V1.50 Version Summary. The war demon appeared, and the demon leader disappeared. The god of eternal life hid his form in the mirror world. The Spirit King ascended the throne, and the zombie god assisted him. The court changed hands, but the truth remained. After the twilight of the gods, the 4 pillar gods fell one after another. 4 new forces rose from the ruins of the old dynasty. Origin, Z Organization, Phantom Church, Detective Club, Blackbeard Pirates, and other superpowers became active in the main universe. Thriller Paradise welcomed a new era of freedom and limitless possibilities. Character adjustment. In the new version, the player's level cap would be adjusted to 60, and the EXP for leveling up above 50 would not increase anymore. The player's skill bar would be adjusted to 15 slots, and the 3 extra slots had to be purchased with game coins. Mode adjustment. The solo survival mode and team survival mode, including normal mode and nightmare mode, generated in the sleeping server would have a higher chance of triggering a long-running scenario. The AFK-like judgment in the killing game would be stricter, and the punishment for AFK-like players would be increased. Changes to items, products, and services. The market space had been completely rebuilt. After the invasion of the anomaly, the shop owners and the guard robots had undergone special training, and their power had increased. All the shops had received a large number of new products, including new equipment, weapons, hairstyles, and apparel. Thriller Box had added a pre-order function. Players could use skill points as collateral to request for an item to be automatically traded after the purchase condition was met. Gameplay adjustment: the graphics quality of the game had greatly improved. The title system had added a self-selection function. Whenever there was a title change, the player could choose whether to accept the new title or not after observing the ability of the new title, and they would be given a chance to choose their old title. Note: after this update, all players will be given a chance to choose their old title, which will be retained for 24 hours after the first time the player logs into the game. They will be given a choice between all the titles that they have owned in the past. In the above content, many of the keywords had hyperlinks, and after clicking on them, they would be able to access the related information. For example, terms like War Demon, God of Eternal Life, Spirit King, Origin, and Organization Z could be accessed. However, none of these NPCs, anomalies, or organizations had any pictures or information. They were only written records, and the content was mostly basic information that everyone knew. For players who were familiar with the deeper content of the game, this information was meaningless, but for new players, it was useful information. As for the level cap increase, most of the players had expected it. In fact, 99% of the players thought that after level 50, the leveling experience would continue to increase to 9-digit. Therefore, when they saw the sentence, "the leveling experience ratio will no longer increase," they were rather surprised. Other than that, there was another change that was predicted by many, and that was the expansion of the skill bar. Indeed, based on the current development of the game, 12 skill bars were no longer enough to satisfy the needs of the high-end players, so the expansion was reasonable. With regards to the price, just like the expansion of the inventory, this kind of advantage that could be bought with money was definitely not cheap. With this change, the Dream Company could earn a lot of money. Then, there was a new service introduced in this patch: the pre-order function for the Thriller Box. To put it simply, this function was created for players who had their eyes on a piece of equipment that was about to expire but did not have enough skill points to buy it. For example, a player had his eyes on a piece of equipment that required 1,000 skill points, but he only had 500 skill points, so he was unable to buy it. Furthermore, the item would be deleted in less than a day, so he might not have enough time to accumulate 500 skill points in the remaining day. Then, he could use the pre-order function to pay a deposit that was equivalent to 40% of the total price of the item. In other words, he would have 400 skill points to have the system extend the time limit of the item. Of course, if the item was bought by someone else before the time limit was up, then there was nothing the system could do about it. After all, the deposit would be refunded. If the item was not bought by anyone within the time limit, then, as an item that had been pre-purchased, it would not be deleted immediately. The system would place it in a specific pre-purchase area and wait for the pre-purchasers to collect the full amount of money. At that time, only players who had paid the pre-purchase deposit for the item would be able to search for the item. Then, within the next 72 hours, as long as one of the pre-order purchasers had accumulated enough skill points to pay the full price, the transaction would be automatically completed. When the transaction was completed, the system would send an email to the other players who had paid the deposit, saying that the item that you have pre-ordered has been purchased by someone else. Then, the skill points and the email would be refunded. However, if all the pre-order players failed to gather enough money within the 72 hours, then the item would be deleted, and every pre-order player would be charged a late fee of 5% of the item's price. That was the general setting of the pre-order function. Over the past few months, when the Dream Company was collecting players' opinions, they had received quite a number of them. Many players said that when they found a piece of equipment that they wanted inside the Thriller Box, they were just short of a few skill points and could not afford it. When they returned from the scenario with enough skill points, the item had already been bought or deleted due to the time limit. That kind of experience was undeniably depressing. Even though the Dream Company was very domineering in many aspects, they were more than happy to fix problems like this that could improve the gaming experience and had room for improvement. Therefore, using this update, they came up with this new function. This kind of small service modification that had little to do with the scenario was not handled by Woody but by the gaming company's technical department. In the future, when the players came across an item that they wanted but were still short of skill points, they could pre-order it. That way, they would not have to wait for the whole scenario to be completed. After all, as long as they paid the deposit, they would be able to enjoy the service of automatic trading once they had enough skill points. Then, the last thing that needed to be mentioned was the adjustment to the title system. Actually, there was not much change to this system. The new titles that the players would receive were still decided by the system. However, this time, the players had the freedom to choose whether or not to accept the new title. Furthermore, whenever the title changed, they could choose any title that they had received in the past and change it to the previous one. This gave the players a chance to change, and it would greatly affect the PvP in the future. Obviously, this change was made based on user feedback. Many players had asked the customer service to take back the old titles that had been replaced because the new titles were not as useful as the old ones. These kind of players, most of them once had a title ability that they were very good at, and their skills and equipment were matched with that ability as the core. In the end, one day, the title suddenly changed, and their character's combat ability dropped by a whole level. In such a situation, they could only admit that they were unlucky because the title could not be changed back, and it was not changed according to their will. Now, this problem had been solved. 23 RD November, 2 a.m. The Dream Company seemed to have a way to pull people's attention back when it was about to move away. Even on this day when the server was closed, it was no exception. One day after the release of the new patch, the Dream Company released 2 more announcements on the official website. The first one had nothing to do with most of the players. Starting from 3 p.m. today, part of Thriller Paradise's server will be opened, and the trial operation of the new version will begin. Then, all players who have the 48 hours to experience the new version will be able to log into the game. There were only 250 players who had the qualification in the whole server, and they were the top 50 teams in the S2 preliminaries. Therefore, this announcement had nothing to do with most of the players. Other than that, the details of the announcement stated that during the limited time period, the game would only open the queue for solo survival mode and free exploration mode. This was expected. Only so few players could log into the game. If it was a team mode or a killing game, when it came to solo mode, one would either run into familiar faces or be unable to find a teammate or opponent for a long time. Also, this event had a deadline. At 9 p.m. on November 29th, the server would shut down again. Those who had not used up the 48 hours by then would have wasted it. The second announcement was, Crazy Thoughts will be officially open on November 25th. Regarding this announcement, the reaction of the players was not that bad, but the people in the gaming industry were caught off guard. No one expected this card game that had been out of stock for so long and was developed by the Dream Company would suddenly be released when the new version of Thriller Paradise was about to be released. Chapter 11:28. A welcome to our company's products. Scanning has begun, please wait for a moment. Scanning completed. Confirm citizen ID. SH13****313. Name, Phone Bujua. Access device. NL 2055 Deluxe Single-Player Gaming Pod. No abnormal external hardware detected. Heart and lung functions are normal. Neural connection program is ready. Please select the type of access. Access type is non-sleeping mode. Adjusting. Adjusting complete. Please confirm to load the game or return to the superior option. program started. Loading the game in 10 seconds. After a series of familiar system voices, Feng Bujue arrived at the login lobby of the game. It was 3:00 in the afternoon on November 23rd. Brother Ju logged in as soon as the server was turned on. He was the only one in the entire Underworld frontline team who logged in at this time. The others were busy during the day. Of course, Feng Bujue was also very busy. It was just that he was not in the mood to write for the past 2 days. Therefore, he put his energy elsewhere. It had been 2 days since Ruoyu left. In these 2 days, Brother Ju and Ruoyu did not contact each other even once. Xiao Tan, Xiao Ling, and Missen seemed to be deliberately avoiding the two of them. It seemed that they already knew about this. Yesterday afternoon, the moving company moved the gaming pod that Ruoyu left at Brother Ju's house. Feng Bujue did not say anything. He just cooperated with them to complete the task. Arthas did not leave anything behind. After all, this cat spent most of its time eating on the table and knew how to use the human toilet. In short, in just 2 days, Feng Bujue returned to his previous state of living alone. He comforted himself that he did not have to sleep on the sofa and gaming pod anymore. He could finally go back to his own room. He did not have to share the toilet with others. He did not have to cook and clean every day. Finally, he was so free again. Was he free? Maybe. Was he lonely? He did not feel that way before, but now maybe. The limited time trial has begun. You have 47, 59, 30 remaining gaming time. When Feng Bujue walked in front of the touchscreen, this notification sounded first. Then, another sentence came. You have obtained the right to choose a new title. You can choose to adopt all the titles you have used before or keep your current title. Before he finished speaking, a game menu automatically popped up in front of Brother Ju. On the menu, there was a row of titles that Brother Ju had used before, including Cold-Blooded Headcracker, Unpredictable Fanatic, Plot Explorer, Vanguard of Darkness, Hate Gatherer, and the title he was currently using, Sly Schemes. Other than that, there was a pending option, which meant that he didn't have to choose immediately. He could consider it later. After all, he could keep this option for 24 hours. The game menu has been upgraded as well. Feng Bujue mumbled to himself as he moved his gaze. When he moved his focus to a certain title, a small window would open next to the title, and it would list the abilities of the title as well as a detailed description. Brother Ju did not look at each option in detail because he remembered the abilities of these titles very clearly. Therefore, without hesitation, he chose the title, Vanguard of Darkness. You have chosen Vanguard of Darkness. The next second, the announcement came again, and Brother Ju was presented with the options of confirm and cancel. After confirming, his title changed instantly, and the system said, "Your title has been changed." After that, Feng Bujue's expression did not change much. He turned his gaze rather woodenly to the touch screen and prepared to join the queue. Normally, Brother Ju would have gone to the storage room to prepare or to deal with the mail like he usually did, but today, he was not in the mood. There was only one thing he wanted to do: throw himself into the solo nightmare scenario and focus on the plot and puzzles. That was better than letting his mind wander and adding to his worries. Feng Bujue, level 50-inch. Please select the game mode that you wish to join. You have chosen solo survival mode, nightmare. Please confirm. Confirmed. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. At that point, Feng Bujue had lost control of his body, and the teleportation had started. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. Then, a young man's hoarse voice entered his ears. Download complete. You are currently in solo survival mode, nightmare. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario: randomly draw 4 puzzle cards. The scenario introduction will be played soon. The game will start immediately after that. Creak, creak. Following the sound of a metal door being pushed open, the introductory cinematic started. A corridor appeared before Feng Bujue's eyes. The corridor was made from cement and the color was gray. Above it was a row of white, old-looking chandeliers. Phew! Then, heavy breathing drifted into Brother Ju's ears. At the same time, the camera started to move forward at a slow, undulating speed. At this point, Feng Bujue could confirm that he was watching the cinematic from the perspective of a character in a scenario, and the breathing that he heard was the voice of this character. In the 1940s, a top-secret experiment project was carried out in an underground lab. The 1940s. Feng Bujue's mind raced. The Manhattan Project? Japan's Unit 731? Or one of the many experiments of a certain German chancellor? A group of scientists from the former Soviet Union decided to conduct an experiment on how humans would react to sleep deprivation. Oh! Once the narration finished, Feng Bujue understood. The former Soviet Union's sleep experiment. Brother Ju knew a thing or two about this former Soviet Union's sleep experiment, but it was hard to tell how the scenario generated by Thriller Paradise would turn out, so Feng Bujue paid close attention to the narration. They chose 5 political war criminals from World War II as their test subjects. These people were told that as long as they could stay awake for 30 days, they would gain their freedom. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing came from behind the camera. Almost at the same time, the camera turned 180 degrees, but in the picture there was still only a gray corridor, and there was no one there. Ha! Ha! The breathing became more urgent. It was clear that the main character of the cinematic was very afraid. Even though he turned back to confirm that he did not see anything, he still picked up his pace. They were trapped inside a hidden room, and there was a constant presence of gas inside the room that could keep them excited. The scientists communicated with them through a hanging window and a microphone. Dong dong dong. 2 seconds later, there was another strange sound. This time it sounded like footsteps. God! Please! The man who was leading the cinematic from the first-person perspective mumbled a line in a very soft voice and started to run forward. They were provided with food that could last them for a month, some books, running water, toilets, and several beds. Just like that, the experiment began. Ha! Ha! I'm almost there. I'm almost there. You can do it, André. You won't die here. André introduced himself as he staggered to the corner ahead. Then, the moment the scream left his mouth, the cinematic shook violently, and the lights in the corridor disappeared. Then, in the oppressive darkness, a mummified face flashed across the camera. Or rather, it had an excited smile on his face. After this fleeting but hair-raising scene, the introduction came to an end. This meant that the scenario had begun. Main mission has been triggered. The system notification came quickly. The moment Feng Bujue regained control of his body, the system notification appeared in his ears. It took less than a second for him to confirm the following things. First, his inventory and skill bar were locked, and he could not use his sorcery weapon. Second, his physical fitness was no different from a normal person's. The buffs from his equipment were no longer effective, and his vision was sealed. Third, the content of the mission was escape from the experimental base. I can't see anything. The second after he regained his consciousness, Feng Bujue reached out to touch the ground around him. At that moment, he was sitting with his back against the wall. Based on the feeling that came from his hands, he should be sitting on the cement floor. There was only darkness before his eyes, and he could not even see his own fingers. As an experienced player of Thriller Paradise, Feng Bujue knew very well that, under such conditions, there was a high chance that he would have something like a flashlight lying around him. But 5 seconds later, Brother Bujue did feel something on the ground not far away from his right, a cold hand. Imagine a person who, after watching a first-person horror video, was immediately thrown into a dark and unfamiliar environment and conveniently touched a cold hand on the ground. If you were such a person, how would you react at this moment? In any case, Feng Bujue's reaction was to follow the hand and continue to feel. Soon, he felt the sleeves, the collar, and the sticky liquid. He did not know what this liquid was, but he was sure it was not blood, because this thing did not have the smell of blood, and did not have that kind of stickiness. Brother Bujue did not stop because of the disgusting feeling. He continued to feel down. Several seconds later, he realized that the person was wearing a shirt without pockets. It felt like a long johns, but it was thicker than a normal long johns. A restraining suit for a mental patient? When Brother Bujue touched the waist, he came up with this speculation. He was very fast. In less than 5 seconds, he found the belt and buckle at the back of the clothes, confirming his theory. He also found that the person he was touching, the right foot and head were gone. Furthermore, the shape of the 2 wounds was a bit strange. It was not easy to determine by touching. He had to think of a way to see it. There's nothing. After searching the body and the 1-meter radius around it, Feng Bujue still could not find any light source. In fact, other than the unknown liquid on his hand, he did not find anything, and that disappointed him. However, Brother Ju did not think that this was strange. After all, it was nightmare mode, and it was unreasonable. If it's not around me, then I'll have to expand the search area. Feng Bujue thought to himself as he stood up and used the wall beside him to support himself. To find out the general size of this space, the most efficient way is undoubtedly to shout, but if I do that, there's an 80 to 90% chance that I'll attract the attention of the monsters. Brother Ju had been paying attention to the sound part. From the moment he regained his mobility until now, he had tried his best to remain silent. Not only was he quiet when he was searching the body, he even controlled his breathing. Therefore, he would not choose to shout. Let's search along the wall. After thinking for a few seconds, Feng Bujue came to this decision. At this time, most people would choose to search from the left side because the human subconscious would think that staying away from the body means staying away from danger. However, Brother Ju was different. He stepped over the body and walked along the wall on the right side. In the end, after walking for about 3 meters, he touched something on the wall, a switch. It was a typical concave light switch, and it was obvious with one touch. But at that moment, Feng Bujue hesitated because his experience and instinct told him, "What will happen when I turn it on?" Of course, even if he knew this, there was no reason not to turn the switch on. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue adjusted his posture and breathing slightly so that he was leaning against the wall. Then, he turned the switch up. Buzz, following the sound of the switch, a white light came on. What entered Feng Bujue's sight was a square room about 8 meters long, and the source of light came from a light bulb at the top of the room. The room was almost empty. The only exit was a metal door. The door was right next to the light switch. If Feng Bujue took 2 more steps forward, he would be able to touch the door frame. Other than that, even though there were no windows in the room, there was a mirror on the wall opposite from Feng Bujue. It was a large mirror that was 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. The mirror was embedded in the cement wall, and the bottom of the mirror was about 1 meter above the ground. For some reason, when Feng Bujue's eyes met the mirror, he had a feeling that at this moment, on the other side of the mirror, someone or rather, something was looking at him. Chapter 11:29. As Feng Bujue had been in a pitch-black environment for quite some time, his eyes had yet to adjust to the light. However, he didn't spend too much time adapting to the light. After a few seconds, he was able to see normally. His gaze immediately shifted to the corpse beside him. It was indeed a corpse wearing a restraining gown. The corpse's head and right leg were missing. Just as Brother Ju had predicted, The blood that flowed out of the wound was not blood, but some sort of odorless, greenish liquid. This is strange. Feng Bujue glanced at the body and then lowered his head to look at his own hands. By then, there was still some sticky liquid on his hands. This liquid doesn't glow in the dark? He did not dwell on this question for too long. He walked towards the metal door not far away. Click. There was no system notification, but when he turned the doorknob, there was a clicking sound. It was a sign that the door was locked. As expected, Feng Bujue muttered to himself as he walked towards the mirror. Soon, he was in front of the mirror. He extended a finger and placed it vertically on the surface of the mirror. A one-way mirror. Brother Ju looked at the reflection of his finger in the mirror and thought to himself. What he was using now was a very simple finger test. Place your finger on the surface of the mirror. If there was a certain distance between your finger and the reflection, it meant that it was a normal mirror. If the reflection was close to your finger, it meant that it was a one-way mirror. Behind the mirror was a piece of glass that could be seen through. Even though this method was not 100% effective, if the reflective layer was sandwiched between two pieces of glass, the finger test would be difficult to detect. He had succeeded. Of course, even if the finger test did not work, Brother Ju was 90% sure that the mirror in front of him was a one-way mirror. This was because, from a functional point of view, it was either an interrogation room or an experimental container. If it was a prison cell, there was a problem. Even if there was no bed in the cell, there should at least be a toilet. Otherwise, the cell would turn into a sewerless toilet in a few days. In that case, since it was an interrogation room or an experimental container, there would definitely be surveillance cameras. In the 1940s, although there was already the technology to record video, it was still 30 years before the invention of surveillance cameras. Therefore, the surveillance method used back then was basically one kind, relying on people to keep an eye on them. If it was in a prison or similar place, it would be enough to send guards to watch through the bars or windows. In such a secret underground experimental base, most of the observations and recordings were made through one-way glass. I keep having the feeling that there's someone staring at me from behind the mirror, Feng Bujue said. But it's just a pure intuition. Without any evidence, I can't make any assertions. He stared at the mirror for a few seconds and thought, Regardless, it's impossible to break this mirror with bare hands without any tools. After all, this is a military-grade facility. It's reasonable to use bulletproof glass behind the one-way mirror. Thinking of this, he prepared to turn around and look at the corpse. Unexpectedly, foo-foo. At that moment, there was a sudden sound of cloth rubbing against the ground. Through the reflection of the mirror, Feng Bujue saw that the corpse on the ground, which had lost its head and right leg, suddenly began to squirm. What do you mean? Seeing this, Brother Ju immediately turned around and stared at the corpse vigilantly. Without a head, there would be no brain. In order to make a body without a brain move, there would have to be some kind of power. In the span of a breath, he had already come up with 3 hypotheses. 1. An engineering-type remote control device. 2. A microbe or chemical weapon. And 3. A supernatural cause. Foo-foo. After a few seconds, the corpse began to squirm even more violently, but there seemed to be no pattern to its movements. It was like a fish that had been fished out of the river. Speaking of which, why didn't it move at all when I touched it just now? While Feng Bujue was thinking, he took a few steps away from the corpse. The difference between just now and now is... Thinking of this, he instinctively glanced at the light on the ceiling. Light. He whispered to himself, then, what's the theory? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Brother Ju's mind. The next second, he looked down at his hand. I see. Seeing that the remaining mucus on his hand was brighter than before, Brother Ju immediately had an idea. In order to verify his speculation, Feng Bujue immediately did something that ordinary people would not do. He quickly walked back to the light switch, raised his hand, and turned off the light again. This time, the room did not completely turn dark because the fluorescent mucus emitted a little light in the darkness. However, almost as soon as the light appeared, it began to dim at a speed that was discernible to the human eye. About 7 to 8 seconds later, the mucus on Feng Bujue's hand completely stopped glowing. The mucus that flowed from the corpse's neck and ankle only lasted for about 20 seconds. When the fluorescence on the mucus completely disappeared, the corpse stopped moving again. At least, from the sound of it, it was not moving anymore. Whether it was when the light was on or when the light was off, my hand did not feel anything strange. Feng Bujue said calmly in the dark, "This means that the mucus does not work outside the body. It has to enter the body's circulatory system," he thought as he walked toward the corpse. As for this guy, his entire body should be filled with the mucus. Not long after, Feng Bujue squatted down and used his hand to check the wound on the corpse again. Oh, Bone saw, when he first searched in the dark, he was not sure. Now that he took a closer look under the light, everything became clear, and the feeling that the wound gave me, when he was sawing, there was no sign of struggle. After confirming all that, Feng Bujue turned the corpse over and undid the straps on the back of the robe. Seeing this, if you think that Feng Bujue is doing this out of humanitarianism, then you must be a very naive and kind person. If you think that Feng Bujue is trying to take off the corpse's clothes to do something dirty to the headless corpse, then I suggest that you go see a psychiatrist or turn yourself in at the police station as soon as possible. In reality, Brother Ju was only trying to remove the metal buckle on the rope. After removing the buckle, Feng Bujue stood up, turned around, and walked toward the metal door without stopping. Since he had turned on the light earlier, the room was no longer dark for Brother Ju. The image of the entire room was imprinted in his mind. With his trained sense of distance down to the centimeter and his control over his steps, even with his eyes closed, Feng Bujue could move freely in the room. Okay, the 1940s. If I'm not mistaken, they were using marble locks. Feng Bujue pulled out the iron pin from the buckle and inserted it into the keyhole of the metal door. Traditional things are not so easy to get. He was speaking from experience. According to Feng Bujue's experience in picking locks, the more old-fashioned the lock was, the more difficult it was to unlock the door. Security doors, from the early 21st century, were the easiest to open. However, locks from before the 1990s could not be opened with professional tools, so they could only be smashed. Click. To make a long story short, after working in front of the door for about 5 minutes, the sound of the lock finally came. Feng Bujue sighed and put the metal buckle into his pocket. He then stood up and opened the door. Creak! Creak! The sound of the door opening was familiar, similar to the sound at the beginning of the cinematic. Perhaps all the metal doors in the base would make this sound when they were opened, or perhaps this was the last door that André opened before his death. Regardless, this sound was a psychological cue, a cue that could raise one's terror point. The lighting in the corridor is still normal. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue walked out of the room with his dead fish eyes and a listless expression. Naturally, he understood the meaning behind the sound of the door opening, but he was not afraid. This place should be different from the corridor in the introduction. Since the metal door had started to creak, Feng Bujue could not keep his silence anymore. He mumbled to himself, "The color of the wall and some of the details are different." The difference that he mentioned might have been missed by a normal person, but he remembered it clearly. There were similar examples in the previous chapters. This was a problem with the human brain's filtering mechanism. For us normal people, most of the time we are as good as blind. Take me for example. There is a table lamp next to my computer, and there is a lampshade on the table lamp. This thing is only 30 centimeters away from me, and most of the time, it will be within my sight. But, if you ask me how many folds there are on the lampshade, I won't be able to tell. You can also give it a try. For example, how many sockets are there in the room you live in? What words are printed on the pen you use every day? What is the first book on the top right of your right hand? Can you answer without taking a look? Feng Bujue knew these details very well, and after years of training, he did not need to purposely do it anymore, and he could complete this kind of observation and memory task. There is no fork in the road. After a few seconds of observation, Brother Ju realized that the room he was in was at the end of a corridor, and the door was facing the corridor. In other words, I can only walk in this direction, and this direction. He looked back at the room behind him. It is the room behind the mirror. After thinking for a few seconds, he closed the metal door behind him until there was only a small gap left. Then, he continued to walk down the corridor. There is indeed. After a few steps, Feng Bujue noticed a few drops of fluorescent liquid scattered on the ground in front of him. Let me see, where did you guys take the head and the leg? Based on Brother Ju's speculation, the head and leg of the body had undoubtedly been sawed off and taken away, and there was definitely more than one person who had done this. If it was done by one person, halfway through the sawing, the body would react violently due to the fluorescent liquid flowing out from the body and reacting with the light. In that case, even if the person could finish the sawing, the body's wounds would be a mess. Therefore, this job had to be done by several people. The head and the leg had to be sawed off at the same time. After sawing off both sides, they had to turn off the lights and leave. And when the group of people came to the corridor with the head and feet, because there were lights in the corridor, the two sawed-off parts would definitely react. This would very likely cause the fluorescent liquid to spill out and drip onto the ground. If I work as a cleaner here, the salary must be very high. Feng Bujue followed the fluorescent liquid. After turning a corner, he saw another metal door. However, the fluorescent liquid did not stop at the door, so it was clear that the head and the leg had not been taken into this room. Feng Bujue walked to the door, and with the intention of giving it a try, he reached out to turn the doorknob, but it was locked. Since it could not be opened, he was relieved and decided to move forward first. After walking for another 20 meters and turning another corner, a third room appeared. The traces of the fluorescent liquid also disappeared at the door of this room. The door of this room was not made of metal, but a movable door made of 2 white boards, the kind commonly used in hospital emergency rooms. Feng Bujue knew that he had come to the right place. He crept over and stood at the door, holding his breath and listening for a while. But he did not hear any movement. So, he gently pushed the door open. Just the gap between the door and the door was enough for the heavy smell of disinfectant to leak out of the room. Feng Bujue did not pay much attention to the smell. He steadily pushed the door open about half a meter and peeked inside. The light in this third room was already on. Brother Ju glanced inside. He saw a few yellowed walls, a pile of medical equipment, a pile of experimental equipment of unknown use, and an area surrounded by curtains that seemed to be a hospital bed. Other than that, there was a floor full of fluorescent liquid. Very good. Feng Bujue was relieved when he saw that there was no living person in sight. He quickly went in. I'll get a set of surgical tools. Murder, first aid, carpentry. I'll do everything, he said to himself in his heart as he approached the wheelbarrow full of surgical tools beside the hospital bed. Just as he came to the wheelbarrow and was about to pick a few items for self-defense, suddenly, ugh, a bone-chilling groan came from the corridor outside the door. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.